was a devil from hell. Under Chen Haonan's strong pressure, these 4 veterans actually had the same idea, that is, join forces to kill this kid first. He is really perverted, if you don't kill him, everyone will die. The 4 of them formed a multi-person sports mode and strangled Chen Haonan. The children from the East are really terrible, which makes these veterans have a sense of crisis and violently, and if they don't kill him, there is always a feeling of thorns in their backs. It's only been a long time, and the strongest trio in the beautiful country has left Thomas to roll the hill alone. Not to mention the 4 veterans of 100 battles who joined forces. The Siberian instructors who watched the screen were also frightened. They knew that death number 1 was strong, but they didn't expect it to be so strong that it would turn the tide in the blink of an eye. Headmaster, stop dancing, it's the most tense time, and the last 5 people who are the last 5 of them have all encircled and suppressed death 1 under the same hatred, which is actually very unfair. The principal sang Ray, yo, the fairest thing in this world is not fair. Anthony silently covered his ears and squinted at Chen Haonan on the screen. It could be seen that he didn't pretend anymore, just crawling behind the snowdrift like a sand sculpture, but only he, the Godfather, knew what the little guy was doing. At present, Anthony silently wrote to Chen Haonan's personal secret file, which reads, physical fitness is more than 12 or more, born eagle eyes, born martial artists, and has super shooting talent. Now, he silently added an article to Chen Haonan's file, super anti-reconnaissance ability, suspected of having a 365-degree perspective. This is a talent with no dead ends. There are only 3 people in the world. This is called the Dragonfly Compound I talent. The remaining 4 people is the Black Soldier, the Good News, the Black Boy, the Devil. They have formed a circle of death number 1. The little guy is about to usher in the biggest crisis, not handled well. The previous efforts are in vain. If the defeat is a victory, he will become famous in the world, no matter whose light it is, cannot cover him. Everyone can bet, black and white. Black is a foursome, white is death 1 good. Each bet must be more than $1 million. Do not accept small bets. Several instructors are playing underground boxing. The most exciting part of underground boxing is betting. This is more exciting than sleeping girls. Some winning bosses on the spot will squat below the girl kicked out. Now it's the most exciting time. I bought $2 million from Black, not because I was not optimistic about death number 1, but because he was too careless. His position was exposed, and he was lying there like a sand sculpture. Even if he could kill 1 person, he would be killed by the other 3. Such a situation is unsolvable. I also bought $5 million knives from Black, mainly because Thomas also belongs to Black, and his fox began to make the same mistakes as men in the world. He has come to his senses, and I want to emphasize, I am a fan of Chen Haonan. Anthony said in a deep voice, I don't buy it, stay neutral, but my son asked me to help him buy it yourself to win. It's not a big problem, right? Everyone looked at him in amazement, especially the boss who sat in the bank, and there was such a comical operation, buy yourself to win? Chief Instructor Anthony, Chen Haonan naturally has no problem buying himself to win, but he can't buy himself to lose, otherwise, he will go directly to the muzzle of the gun himself. It will be boring, huh? Bet 10 times as much as you buy. $1 billion. What, how much? Billion? Are you sure? Anthony nodded solemnly. Do you look at me like a joker? The principal, the owner of the village, stopped dancing, kept his hands held high, and asked in surprise, God, does he have $1 billion? Yes, this is a qualification certificate from him. The principal was stunned to find that the A4 qualification certificate in Anthony's hand was stamped with the seal of the Bank of Communications, and the total assets under the seal were actually. There are 4 billion euros, my God, why is he richer than me? No, it's not that I can't afford to play, it's that the bet is over the top and can only accept a bet of $100 million, with the odds unchanged for Black and 3 times lower for White. Anthony said solemnly, Lord Headmaster, you just can't afford to play together. If I had done it in the past, I, Alexander, now have an all-round perspective. As long as I act fast enough, then there is nothing to say for the joint efforts of the 4 people. Chen Haonan is still full of confidence. After the initial duel, he found that the huge role of all-round perspective in the snow mountain, others will be affected by the refraction of the ice, he has no at all, and it is equivalent to a Chun Hao boy with dozens of compound eyes, similar to a dragonfly. After the initial caution, he from the Qi training period into the Jindan period of feeling, my life is up to me. From the beginning, he targeted me in all kinds of ways, bullied us Orientals, our national university, pay attention to tolerance, but the jackals are coming, we also have guns, alliances, let you slowly despair, and when you hear about the Oriental Yengui in the future, you must be afraid, the stronger I behave, the more I can protect the safety of my compatriots abroad. After thinking about this truth, Chen Haonan didn't plan to hide it, but planned to forcibly crush it. On the other side, the 4 veterans who joined forces, relying on the source of the voice just now, deduced the location of Chen Haonan. I have to say that these people's sixth sense is very powerful. This is the ability to survive on the battlefield. Without this, they would have received a boxed lunch a long time ago. I heard Dai Gaola from the last 3 tournaments say that the little guy in the east once completed the sniping of him in the mobile shooting, and this time he must be regained from the field. Thinking of this, the jaguar from Germany came and moved quickly, or sideways, or rolling. Every movement was marked to the extreme, and the muzzle of his gun was always kept in the chest position. Suddenly, a snowflake exploded in front of him, and a figure ejected into the air, and a gunshot rang out. The bullet hit Jaguar's body, causing him to hook the trigger's right hand, where it froze, and without completing the final action, he was 0.5 seconds slower. In other words, in an environment where snowflakes are full and difficult to detect with the naked eye, the Oriental man hiding under the ice is still faster than him. There was a pain in his chest, which reminded Jaguar of De Gauller's words again, for that kid, I suspect that he still has a lot of incredible abilities, and if you face him, you will suspect that Spider-Man exists. It's really scary, but with the 2 captains of the beautiful country at the bottom, I'm not ugly. Thinking of this, Jaguar's mood really improved a lot. He got up carefully, and then carefully blew off every tiny snowflake on the firearm, locked the safety, and withdrew the bullet. Every detail was meticulous, full of the spirit of a craftsman, but his eyes were always locked on the coquettish Chen Haonan. I saw the little boy in the air. After throwing himself 3 meters to the right, he landed a roundhouse kick, turning the snow all over the ground into a scene of snowflakes flying all over the sky, hiding his little body. Bang bang bang. Almost after the jaguar was killed, the 3 people who were all masters completed the lock and fired. The 3 bullets form a small character, going hand in hand, like the elf of life, dancing at high speed, spinning, hand in hand into the flying snowflakes, stirring up Zhou Tian's cold, flying Cheung broken jade. The snowflakes disperse and return to tranquility. Not dead. The dead jaguar relied on his keen eyesight and did not see any signs of smoke rising after the snowflakes, which means that after the kid killed him, he still managed to escape calmly and successfully in the 3-gun siege. The only 3 remaining veterans also saw the snowflakes gradually disperse, and the smoke rose unexpectedly, and the Orientals, under their noses, killed their allies and completed the disguise again, which is very hell. Even if it is Thomas and Radenberg, it is impossible to kill in and out of the 4 of them, and still successfully escape. Spread out and kill him first, or else he will kill all of us. Someone whispered in English, but in fact, without saying anything, the 3 of them had already carefully dispersed, staring at the position behind the snowflakes. But they couldn't see anything. The target seems to have vanished out of thin air. Did he get into the ground? After Chen Haonan succeeded, he didn't dare to hold it up, and immediately used his god-level weapon skills to kick the snowflakes out of the effect of the explosion, blocking everyone's sight, and immediately exploded quickly, like a small snow leopard, gliding quickly on the ice, and when he stopped, he was already hiding behind a huge block of ice. This position has exceeded the distance judged by the 3 people, and I couldn't imagine that in such a short time, Chen Haonan would float out more than 10 meters. Even if he floated out, he could also kick the ice out of the smoke, and the sum of these skills caused such a miracle. Behind the ice, the all-round vision opened, Chen Haonan's figure flashed, and the gun in his hand suddenly hooked down. The captain of the SAS Devil, who was 150 meters away, felt a pain in his chest, and then the smoke rose, and he died. Fuck, he's hiding behind the ice, a distance beyond anyone else knows. In the midst of scolding, he stood up, and could vaguely see Chen Haonan's figure flickering, and his small figure began to run wildly. In the process of running wildly, Chen Haonan didn't look back, and fired a backhand shot. Just after the SAS Devil died, the black boy in France felt that he had seized the opportunity, turned the muzzle, and wanted to lock Chen Haonan's position. As a result, a bullet penetrated the snowflakes in the sky, with a chill concentrated on his left chest. The dull impact made him muffle, and immediately found himself dead. Monster, he must be a monster. The shot just now, he shot in turn, this can't be. The black boy was very unwilling to stand up from the snow, and his eyes were filled with great horror and incredulity. How did this shoot his eyes on the back of his head? Boom! Just when Chen Haonan killed the black boy with the second shot, the black soldier of the hairy bear seized the opportunity, locked on Chen Haonan's figure and fired a shot. The bullet was marked out, passing through the snowflakes in the sky, chasing the small body. Chen Haonan slid a shovel, leaned on the terrain, slid out for more than 10 meters, and finally completed the breaks by relying on the number 11 bus, avoiding the deadly bullets fired from the blast. He didn't hit, he was too flexible. The bullet missed, and the white-haired black soldier really stood on end. No matter how calm he was and how strong his psychological quality was, he couldn't help but feel panic and unfillable surprise in his heart. Oriental young people are ridiculously strong. The black soldier is very confident in his marksmanship, almost 100%. It can only be said that the young man really has eyes behind his back, knows his every move, and he stands behind him, as if he is stripped naked, and there is no secret at all, so it is useless to play any tactical calculations. Physical fitness, observation, anti-sniper ability, godlike positioning ability. All of these add up, combined in a child's body, forming a huge strength and personality charm. It can be said that after killing the 300 war queens in a row, Chen Haonan's personal image and strength have been directly promoted to the level of Jesus in the world of special forces, which emphasizes strength. He represents the god of death. If the gun is out, you will die. Even if he is exposed, you never know where he will appear in the next moment, and his bullets always fly out at incredible points, harvesting the lives of one strong person after another. You know, this is the strongest instructor competition in the world, not the king of the 100 refining soldiers, and he is not qualified to board the platform here. Such a master, under Chen Haonan's gun, is still as fragile as a wafer biscuit. The fallen soldier king, the instructor who watched the video, and the survivors hiding in the shadows all had such thoughts in their hearts. The cold wind is bleak, and the snow is flying. A small and very cute figure, carrying a sniper rifle on his immature shoulder, walked on the snow with steps that his 6 relatives did not recognize, and his immature milk voice resounded in everyone's ears. "Come out, I'll give you a chance to go head-to-head." As he spoke, he walked to the place where the black soldier was hiding. His posture, his voice, and his choice made the people present open their mouths wide and feel full of absurdity. This irony, this self-confidence, is simply full. They had never seen a man walk under the enemy's guns with a big grin in a sniper duel. Looking for death, the hairy bear black soldier who pays attention to fighting rather than die, and his combat style is similar to that of the orcs of the past, and he will never be a slave. This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. Chen Haonan's words were like a sharp dagger, piercing his bottom line, making him jump like thunder, and his chest burned with anger. He hid behind the ice, thinking in his heart, jumping out directly and fighting alone, or relying on strategy to kill this terrible devil. The increasingly violent panting showed the unrest of his heart. On the top of the peak, the principal jumped up directly and exclaimed, "Classic, really classic, 1 against 4, kill 3, force the last heads up. God, this is the peak sniper battle I pursue, let me clear it." He quickly killed one person, kicked the snowflakes to cover his body, retreated to the ice, used everyone's carelessness to kill the second person. The third person avoided the deadly bullets, and directly launched a heads-up, unscrupulous, gorgeous and perfect. God, I can't use words to describe this visual feast. Instructor Anthony, I can tell you that I can sell hundreds of millions of copyrights for this video alone. Anthony said calmly, "Headmaster, if death number 1 has the last laugh, you must lose to him 300 million American knives." This one. The principal instantly calmed down a lot, and after a moment, he was happy again, and said with a smile, "The video can be divided into several departments to be sold, to make the country's money, that is, big money. I can sell 1 billion. If death number 1 laughs to the end, this video will be more valuable, even 10 times more. Who will refuse the battle of fame of a god of war, and just this broadcast right? I will get $1 billion US. Boss, I feel your generosity." And finally said all the copyright fees. I thought there was only 50 million broadcast fees for the contract, but I didn't expect it to be 1 billion. Please be sure to pay dividends according to the contract. I am with shares, and it is a lot, hee. Anthony had a rare smile. The principal, who suddenly found that he was speechless, shut up all of a sudden, and he immediately added, "Anthony, don't be a man in the money hole. This dividend, you must first deduct the operating expenses, and there is not much left. Headmaster, you're darker than a website for online articles. I'm not going to lose to him, I'm not going to lose to him." I have received the most rigorous special training, and I am also the top gunner in China. I say second, and no one dares to say that I am the first. In the special competition, I killed more than 30 people alone, ranking among the best. My advantage is to shoot fast, with lightning-fast hand speed. Leaning on the black soldier behind the ice, he recalled his brilliant career, pulled his confidence back. He listened to the footsteps coming by, silently remembered the distance, calculated the position, and then when it reached 10, he suddenly rolled away. Boom! Boom! The two were in the snow, constantly rolling and shooting. The sound of gunfire in the wind and snow continued to reach the ears of the people around, and everyone tried to capture the two figures of the duel, one large and one small. I saw the two of them rolling, or stopping, or shooting, and after 3 rounds passed, the big figure paused, and then, the smoke filled the air. Black soldiers are killed. The black soldier, who was half kneeling on the snow, looked at his heart with a wry smile and a bitter smile. He tried his best, but no matter how he rolled or shot, he couldn't keep up with the child's rhythm. He couldn't keep up at all, so he followed 2 shots, and the third shot was half a beat slower, and he was killed. His gaze swept over the bullet not far away, which he had shot, and suddenly, his eyes bulged out like a dead fish in agony. I saw that the warhead was deformed. What is this special? It was actually caused by the impact of a bullet? My God, that is, he shot first, and then the child, sniping directly at his bullets? What kind of eyesight is this? What kind of marksmanship is this? What kind of milk powder is this for children who grow up? He subconsciously searched, and immediately found a second bullet more than 30 meters away, which was also deformed. Absolutely. The black soldier showed Stephen Chow's expression, and the bitter smile disappeared, replaced by sincere admiration. In the end, there is Thomas left. I know this guy. His most powerful part is the hidden operation. As one of the captains of the Navy SEALs, there are many legends about him. He has been assassinated many times, all succeeded, even on a large battlefield. He can retreat with his whole body. He is a very difficult opponent. Just the first step of the competition, this terrible child can't kill Thomas. I believe that Thomas, who calmed down, became more cautious. I don't know who can have the last laugh. The black soldier carefully compared the strengths of the two. Thomas is the most powerful as latent combat and silent infiltration, while the child of the East, so to speak, the hexagonal warrior, can't see where the shortcomings are for the time being. He is a mystery, full of unfathomable. Everyone was silent and respectful, and after seeing the black soldiers killed, Chen Haonan carried the spear again, and his small figure flashed in the snowflakes in the sky, and went directly down the snow mountain. The man, the gun, the picture. At this moment, this anime-like picture is solidified in the hearts of these veterans of 100 battles, for a long time, allowing them to spend their lives pursuing such a realm. Chen Haonan left his sorrow to them and took away all the beauty, and from then on, in the lives of these veterans, from now on, there was no reason to be happy. At this moment, on the top of the peak, a helicopter landed, and Mr. Fujino, who was full of anger, rushed directly to Anthony and questioned angrily. Why are the other students simulating deaths, but the 2 players in my country are officially dead? I need an explanation why this happened. Facing Fujino's questioning, Anthony glanced at the other party and sneered. Little master, there is more to this chapter. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The back is more exciting. Skills are not as good as others, and you have to provoke others. Isn't it normal to die? You need to explain? I also need to explain why the players in your country have to break the rules from the beginning, and whether you have any mission to come, for example, to find a way to provoke public anger and kill this kid in the East. Mr. Fujino, since you came to question me, I have been suspicious of this question, and I want to ask you. You came just in time. Explain it to me. Baga. Fujino didn't expect Anthony's way of reasoning to question him in turn, which made his anger erupt directly like a volcano under Mount Fuji. However, Anthony, who is 2 meters tall, with his hands in his pockets, looked at him coldly, completely unaffected by his anger, and at the same time, he didn't know when he had a huge silver pistol, the Desert Eagle. I'm going to file a lawsuit in an international arbitration meeting, and you wait. I need a fair explanation, and the relevant compensation. After saying that, he turned around and left. Silly. Anthony scolded in a non-standard Chen Haonan milk voice. Take your student's body and go. Fujino, who was in a state of anger, didn't collect the body and walked away. On the snow, the 2 corpses placed side by side were gradually covered by snowflakes and drowned. This is their fate. For the Japanese, who are cold by nature, they only worship the strong. and for the weak, even if they are benefactors or comrades in arms, they even step on a few feet. After stepping into the helicopter, Fujino combed his mood for a while, looked at the corpses that were gradually submerged in the wind and snow below through the glass, and muttered to himself, "Both, what I want to do is not to take away your corpses, but to avenge you." He picked up another very old phone and dialed the headquarters. This time, the last revenge was not avenged, and 2 excellent members of the self-defense forces died, and the new revenge plus the old hatred can no longer be endured, and if he endures it again, he will vomit blood and die. Of course, the ostensible means is to kill Chen Haonan, a rising star, who is in the ascendant, and he can only rely on the means of not seeing the light to carry out assassination. Chen Haonan, you should be damned, you are only 9 years old, pressing so many powerful military kings in the world. This battle, you step on their corpses, on the world stage, and become famous all over the world in the future. If you don't die here, in the military world that worships the strong, you will definitely have the reputation and personality charm of a country's president. In the East, there can be no superheroes like you. This will become the most powerful political capital in the East. You can't leave here alive. You, only 9 years old, can't become the hope of the world's soldiers. I ask you to die. He gritted his teeth, hideous as a beast, his face red as blood, envious and jealous, and in the end, he twisted himself. Chen Haonan naturally didn't know he was being targeted behind his back, but he didn't have anything to say. Before he came, there was a bath with Fengyuns and Ran, and the fat secretary told him, "You go to the event this time, you must be targeted." According to the information I have, after the Siberian crash, an investigation team called Oriental Superman was set up on the side of the dogskin country, and the information was crammed into a room, investigating, tracking, and even assassinating him. Chen Haonan has always believed in the wind blowing by the person next to him, so this time he saw one, killed one, saw two, killed a pair, and set up an assassination team. What was he, polite? What kind of tolerance and concession? That is the principle of the big woman's safety, not my Chen Haonan's principle. In this regard, he is similar to Tang Xinyi's big gun mount, with a similar psychology. Life and death are downplayed, just do it. Thomas, it's really a poisonous snake. His specialty is lurking, and he can give others a fatal blow at any time, so it's impossible to be careless. At present, Chen Haonan has already descended the snow peak, using the 10-mile eagle eye, constantly scanning the surroundings, and at the same time, starting to catch the wind and catch the shadow. He is like a squirrel on the snow, no movement can escape the ears and eyes. It's worth boasting that Thomas is really a talent. All the way down, Chen Haonan couldn't find any traces, until his attention was on a cedar on the edge of a cliff, and the delicate little corners of his mouth finally aroused the smile of the Dragon King. Good guys, it turns out that this is hidden. The cedars were covered with frost, and the shape was not large, and one of the upside-down hailstones was actually Thomas in disguise. This is a ruthless man. He immediately put himself on the edge of the cliff, and his body is hidden under the cliff, revealing a barrel covered with ice and snow, which looks like a show ice ball. How do you spot him? Of course, this is actually very dangerous, because his position is a cliff, and if he accidentally rolls down, he can go to see the first Mr. President. This guy, taking such a big risk, it seems that his opinion of me has become big, and he will not die or die. Chen Haonan's guess is not far from 10. Thomas, who was hanging on the cliff, just wanted to kill Chen Haonan for the sake of his lover and child who was far away in Japan, and he had even designed to use the cliff to kill the child, and the excuses were all found. Hail camouflaged the barrel well. He didn't have to look up. Using a small inconspicuous mirror buried in the snow, it was enough. Ako is a good woman, she unlocked all the poses for me. It's worth my life adventure. Thomas's heart was full of fiery romanticism, and his mind flashed to the life of Tokyo where he had been stationed for 3 years, which was a period of fire, and it is no wonder that MacArthur mentioned Tokyo many times in his memoirs as the most comfortable day for him. In the midst of all his thoughts, Thomas didn't dare to be careless, this little Superman in the East, but when the three of them joined forces, he killed Team Lei and Team Mo, which was so strong that his scalp was numb. At this moment, he saw that small appearance appeared in the lens, and he ran down the hill, raised his gun, and made a shooting motion. With this action, a hail magnified in the lens. Magnify. It's coming so fast. God, this is a bullet. The lens confused the trajectory of the bullet, and when Thomas reacted, the bullet whistled and directly focused on his forehead, and the huge, sudden stinging pain made him tumble down the cliff and fall all the way. Boom! He was lucky enough to smash into the soft snow below, only to faint, and at the last thought of losing consciousness. Why is this bullet so lethal? Isn't this an empty cartridge? This distance can knock me off the cliff. But fortunately I chose the shortest place. Bullet marks whisper. It can really amplify the power of bullets to the extreme. Ordinary bullets can do the effect of sniper bullets. This is the destructive power of G-spot. On the other side, Chen Haonan, who killed Thomas with one shot, cracked his small mouth, and finally showed the swaggering smile of the Dragon King. Thomas was the last opponent. He won the final victory, especially the last shot. He used his 17 attribute spiritual power, fused bullet marks and whispers, and directly hit Thomas, who was hanging on the edge of the cliff, revealing half of the turtle, and fell off the cliff. At this point, the Snow Peak confrontation is over. Chen Haonan had the last laugh, so to speak. The thrilling hunting project has completely become his personal show. Not long after, a helicopter came and picked up all the trainees, including Thomas, who had fainted. On the plane through the clouds, the 18 veterans of 100 battles who participated in the event sat side by side. Their eyes were on a corpse at their feet, the pale and stiff remains, and the angry eyes made everyone's hearts emerge with meaning. This is death without blinding. In an instant, everyone shifted their eyes to the child in the corner and began to communicate in a low voice. This Japanese was killed by that child. I don't understand. Why, after everyone has been lurking for more than 30 minutes, he can still have flexible mobility, and even when he gets close to the Japanese player, the other party doesn't react, and his neck is broken. Incomprehensible things. You have also seen in the follow-up, he killed all his opponents alone, including the 3 captains of the beautiful country. I still can't figure it out. He can actually make snowflakes into the effect of bomb explosions so as to hide his body. Such a destructive power. Not his feet can be made, and besides, he is so young. At his age, my son only learned to fish. My son will pick up a girl by then, and he will be a primary school teacher, but Dongfang is a child. He will kill people. The media report that the children of Yenghua have gone through 9 years of compulsory education, and everyone is stupid, and they will only drop their school bags. Is this a misleading? Damn the media, damn capitalists, it's completely untrustworthy. People are so strong that their teenagers are so strong. This is probably the legendary 9-year compulsory education effect. There is a chance. I want to send my child to Yenghua for 9 years of compulsory education. He is only 3 years old now, and it is still too late. Hello, I want to ask, why did the 4 of you join forces to be killed by that kid? I can't see it clearly. Can I interview you? If you're in a bad mood, you can choose not to say it. Someone gathered around the 4 people who were sitting side by side, and asked with a smile, their expressions hiding a touch of pleasure. These 4 people are the Devil Captain of United Kingdom, the Jaguar Captain of Germany, the Wild Boy Captain, and the Black Soldier Captain. The reason why we sat together was that everyone couldn't let go, and they couldn't calm down for a long time, and they were exchanging opinions with each other, but I didn't expect someone to lean over and play the role of a reporter. The Devil Captain of United Kingdom didn't care, shrugged his shoulders and said, "There is no shame, his movements are too fast. I was careless, and I feel that he has long locked any of my movements. How did he do it? You should ask that little Superman." Ah, thank you for your kind sharing. This Jaguar Captain, how did you get killed? Country player Lu Shizhen began to interview the tall Jaguar Captain. I see if you owe a beating. I remember you were the first to be killed, right? Do you still have the face to interview me? Captain Jaguar cursed with a blank face. Lu Shizhen's smile did not change, and said with a smile, I don't think there is anything. First of all, you and we are just careless, and secondly, knowing yourself and knowing your opponent can summarize and improve, isn't it? And, in fact, I know that child. 4 months ago, he went to Uruk to carry out a rescue mission, or I entertained him. Really? So what do you mean? Lu Shizhen's fair face was as handsome as a star, and he showed a very personable smile. I found that this child may also be a descendant of the sun, understand it? Oh, God. Maria. Fuck. Shit. Everyone on the plane was frightened by the words of Lu Shizhen of H country, and they broke out different national quintessences. In the heated discussion and shock of everyone, Lu Shizhen walked to Chen Haonan in the corner with a confident smile and stretched out his hand to him. Hello, Twilight's little boyfriend, we met again. I helped you in Uruk, and I remember my mother, Captain Lu. He smiled lightly at this miracle child, with a smile on his face that we are very familiar with. You must greet me with a smile, and say, hello, I haven't seen you for a long time, my friend, you are still. As a result, Chen Haonan snorted coldly and turned his little face away. I don't know. I don't know. Lu Shizhen's face was slightly stunned, and he quickly glanced at everyone, and at this moment, everyone laughed, which sounded very harsh. Why don't you know, that day, you brought a woman codenamed Violet, asked us for help, to get the news of General Armand. Later, we also participated in the earthquake relief together. You don't remember me, always remember your girlfriend, she still misses you in Country H, and rejected my pursuit many times. Don't you want to get her information? I'm not interested, I'm going to sleep, don't chatter, let's talk about it again. Lao Tzu's ancestors are all from your H country. Everyone inside the plane erupted in exaggerated laughter. The ridicule was quite strong, so that Lu Shizhen couldn't stand still, so he could only shout a few words, and reluctantly walked back to his seat and sat down with a bang. Originally, he wanted to have a good relationship with everyone, and it was best to get everyone's friendship. In this way, he, the first player to be eliminated, would have an explanation when he returned to China, and in the report, it was written that he came to make friends, and what was wrong with being the first to be eliminated? It's a pity that Chen Haonan, a dead child, said that he didn't recognize him for anything, and put out his girlfriend, but he was also indifferent, a scumbag. He abandoned it from the beginning. He remembered the scene of the disaster. The dead child was lying in Duyan's arms and was breastfeeding, the milk was given by Duyan, let him eat more, and there was a... After drinking, the empty bottle was still the garbage thrown by his ex-boyfriend Lu Shizhen, who has a serious cleanliness disorder. The little scumbag, how sweet he smiled when he was lying in the arms of the female doctor, and how ruthless he is now, he doesn't look interested at all. Regarding Chen Haonan's reaction to not hanging, Captain Lu had no choice. He couldn't beat him, so he could only go back to his position and continue to hook up with the people next to him. Little white face, you made me rest. Russia's player, Black Soldier Puss, opened his eyes and glared at the little white-faced Lu Shizhen. I'm making friends, and I will have a care in the future, and everyone gets together, which is also a kind of fate, don't you say? Pussy showed his arms full of white hair, and his muscles stiffened. Fate, you think this is a paradise for friends? Are you a friend of women? After a long time of chattering, Lao Tzu has already entered the top 4. You need to rest well, if you quarrel again, I will beat you. After saying that, he roared, and saliva squirted into Captain Lu's mouth. Insulting Smena. Captain Lu's round eyes widened angrily, because he was handsome. Even if he was the female president of his country, he invited him to the presidential palace to be a personal bodyguard, and after crossing this layer of gold, he became a second lieutenant directly into a captain. Everyone was polite to him, and if there was any good task, he was a descendant of the sun to carry it out, and today he was really unlucky, meeting a child who didn't recognize his 6 relatives, and meeting a white hair who was so unreasonable. Looking at the other party's bulging muscles and the murderous aura on his face, Captain Lu gave up the idea of struggling and had to let the other party do whatever he wanted with him. Growl. Puth cursed a few more words, rolled down his sleeves, and began to close his eyes and rest. In this process, Chen Haonan opened his small eyes, glanced at this side, and smiled with his small mouth. This Black Soldier of Russia, the people are quite real, and there are not as many flowery intestines as the people of Country H. It's not that he can't remember this Captain Lu, but he feels that the other party is too much, participating in a peacekeeping work, and falling in love with a female doctor every day. Fortunately, he snatched love by himself and let him be himself. Originally, he didn't mind saying hello to the other party, but when he heard this guy say that he was also a descendant of the sun, he wanted to vomit. If it wasn't for face, the little fist greeted his front teeth directly. H people, it's the existence of Maltose, sticky and can't get rid of it, the whole world is their blood. It's really terrible. I can't afford to provoke, but it's true that there has been no news of Chelsea for a long time. When I grow up, I'll go to Seoul to see you again, and by the way, I'll see you and let you be a happy little doctor. Chen Haonan thought about it, and soon entered a state of recovery, and next, it was the real camp. Anthony said that the second project is the real strongest instructor. To bring out a mature team by himself, the team members should be unfamiliar, and the difficulty can be imagined. You must know that in order to train the White Tiger soldiers and plant his own seeds for female soldiers, he doesn't know how much he spent. It is worth mentioning that even if he closes his eyes, Chen Haonan can feel that the eyes of these people have been turning around him. Some are curious, some are admired, and some are full of malice. Nothing to say. In the other corner of the helicopter, the 2 captains of the beautiful country kept their eyes on Chen Haonan to patrol, and the next moment, they all wanted to pounce. Just next to them, Thomas, the captain of the SEALs, had not woken up yet, convulsions from time to time, his mouth was bloody, and the main one did not need money. P.S. Someone asked about the conditions of the increase, a great god certification, at 10,000 words, you can't afford to play, you can't afford to pay, just 4,000 words a day, and you have to deliver food to earn living expenses. Give him a booster shot, otherwise, Thomas will lose this opportunity. Getting a booster shot will have an impact on his career later in life, are you sure? I fought, I regretted it for a few hours, if I didn't fight, he regretted it for the rest of his life, give him an injection, we don't have a chance, otherwise it will be difficult to explain after we go back, for the strongest instructor, we are determined to win, this is a powerful political capital, otherwise, we will be abandoned in the army. After a brief exchange, a special booster needle was injected into Thomas's artery. The helicopter continued its flight and returned to the Siberian concentration camps. As soon as Chun Haonan came down, he saw Long Xiaoyun open his arms to him, revealing his great chest. Come on, let me hug you, and you will tell me the final ranking. The instructors who were present were all focused on Chen Haonan, wanting to hear what he had to say. After all, the final list had not yet come out. Chen Haonan said indifferently, Instructor Anthony is here, let him announce it. Long Xiaoyun gave him a face wash and relaxed Chen Haonan's little muscles with a smile, while the other instructors around him were communicating with their team members in a questioning or stern tone, and after all these people communicated for a while, they looked at Chen Haonan's eyes, full of shock, because they all got the same news, the champion is this child. It didn't take long for Anthony to come to everyone's faces and say loudly. After the first round of intense selection, the 4 people who entered the second round of the event have come out. Is there only 4 people entering? The instructor who led the team still just learned about the news. Anthony ignored the reactions of these people and continued to lose loudly. First place, Yen Guochen Hao Gay. Second place, Beautiful Country Thomas. Third place, Mao Bear Country Puss. Fourth place, France Black Boy Charles de Gaulle. These 4 people will participate in the second round of competition. Congratulations, the country representatives who did not read their names. You can choose to leave, of course. You are also welcome to stay and watch the event. Here's a video to show you the first round of the game. Please don't take pictures. The copyright belongs to the principal, and you need to communicate with him. Anthony said to the correspondent, play the Snow Peak confrontation video. How long did the video start playing? To be honest, since Anthony announced the news, 100% of the players couldn't accept this time, including Mr. Higashizawa of Country H. In addition to harshly interrogating UC Jean, he was waiting to watch the video. On the screen, from the beginning of the jump, a small figure can be seen, and on the shaking screen, the first one jumps down and rushes to the top of the snow peak. 30 minutes later, with a bang, Yusher Jean of Country H stood up helplessly with a face full of rising smoke, looking very embarrassed. Even after accepting the result, Dong Zhe couldn't help but scold, waste, real waste, Captain Liu, you can't represent the descendants of the sun. After you go back this time, you still have to be an ordinary soldier. Lu Shizhen said helplessly, I don't like such a cold combat environment. In my military career, most of them are peacekeeping, all for the slightly warm south, so I... No need to explain, you go back and tell Mr. President, you little white face. Mr. Tozawa, please respect the honor of the soldiers, I have done my best. The two tore apart, of course, and they were all communicating with each other. The video of Chun Haonan killing Mr. Miyamoto did not appear. This is the principal's special explanation and deletion. After all, the role he played is not very glorious. As time comes to retire, the best part arrives. First of all, a small figure, grabbing a gun, ran down the snowy mountain, killed 2 trainees in a row, and scared Mr. Thomas to roll down the snowy slope. The 3 Thomas, who lined up to watch the video, glanced at each other, and in each other's eyes, they all saw anger and dissatisfaction. Playing the video like this seems to convince them, but it is equivalent to whipping the corpse. But what can be done? From this picture, they once again realized that Chun Haonan is terrible, completely ignoring the harsh environment, ignoring the laws of nature, and killing people against science. Thomas, how are you feeling? I feel like I've blown up the earth, and you've given me an injection? For the honor of the empire, and for your honor, this is an inevitable choice. Hearing this, Thomas sighed inwardly. If this is the case, he will have to retire for 3 years at most, and after 10 years, he will age rapidly, which is the price of squeezing the potential of life. That kid is indeed God's favorite. I've read Oriental novels, this is called hanging, but the next thing is to command the battle, pay attention to the ability to lead the team, this is his shortcoming. I will get the last physiology, for soldiers, life is brilliant enough, it doesn't have to be long. Thomas comforted himself. After he saw Chen Haonan kill the 4 people in a row again, Thomas and his little friend fell into silent shock again. When this kid chased and killed them, he still had surprise tactics, but against the 4 veterans of 100 battles behind, it was completely a strong self-confidence and extraordinary strength. At the end of the video playback, the scene fell into absolute silence. Only Long Xiaoyun was so excited that he hugged Chen Haonan hard, and kissed him back and forth several times on his handsome little face, making Chen Haonan, a former idol, his face full of saliva. Pay attention to the image, they're coming over to deliver business cards to you, you're a diplomat working. Chen Haonan wiped the saliva off his face vigorously, stood next to him with a cold face. It is worth mentioning, he is used to having idol baggage. Little master, there is more to this chapter, please click on the next page to continue reading, the back is more exciting. Sure enough, after a short silence, many of the instructors who led the team immediately came over, one by one more excited. Hello, this is my business card. In the future, our country will have a visit to your east. Welcome us to have a pleasant cooperation in the future, and congratulate you on achieving good results in the next events. I will continue to pay attention to you. Hello, the East is such a magical country, a child is so powerful, I will definitely suggest that Mr. President, pay you a visit. Little one, you are really my idol, we will have a chance to meet. Hello? One by one, the instructors led the team, throwing olive branches to Long Xiaoyun and Chen Haonan, hoping to form a deep friendship with them and strengthen cooperation in the future. Of course, not everyone came over to show their enthusiasm, because this is not the final championship. Looking at the lively scene like an opening table, Puss, de Gaulle, and Thomas seemed cold and deserted, and no one cared about them at all. These 3 people were already standing together, sweeping Chen Haonan's eyes, full of resentment. No one mentioned it, but the 3 of them formed an alliance again in their hearts, and in the second round, seize any opportunity to kill this kid first, made, looking at his indifferent appearance, as if he owed him hundreds of millions of small looks out of thin air. It was really unpleasant. I'm ready to get on the plane. I announced the next rules. The second event will enter the Maxiong military region. I have obtained the consent of the commander of the Eastern Military Region, Rox. He will give you 4 captains, lend a team of 10 people, and let you train these team members for a month. In a month, you will take your team members to face the encirclement and suppression of the Eastern Military Region. This is an unprecedented event. You are facing an iron-blooded army, and it is across countries and races. With Anthony's explanation, the 4 instructors who led the team did not show any excitement, but frowned. Anyone knows what the concept of going to train soldiers from other countries, whether they are obedient and cooperative, this is much more difficult than training a martyr. Instructor Anthony, this involves state secrets. We helped the Mao Bear country train soldiers. Did we let them take the opportunity to learn our experience? I don't think this is a suitable regulation. Anthony opened his mouth and said, why not change the angle? You have also learned the advanced concept of the woolly bear country. This is the latest temptation, creating a historical precedent. If you feel that you are a loser, you can choose to give up. I can be responsible for telling you, before you come, about this subject. Our principal has discussed with the president of your country. The final result is no problem. Hearing this, the crowd fell silent. Instructor Anthony, as you said, this is a unique event and I love it. The ironclad speaker just now made an expression of sudden realization, and he figured it out at once. Long Xiaoyun possessed himself and told Chen Haonan, I know this Rox of the Southeast Military Region. This person was born in special forces, promoted to become a commander. He attaches great importance to the special training of special forces. The goal is to build in high-tech information synthesis combat troops, plus the Mao people are all fighting nations. It is really difficult to deal with, especially you are a child. In the future, your team members will definitely not obey you. Do you have any way? Regarding Long Xiaoyun's question, Chen Haonan said indifferently, if you don't accept it, you will be convinced, and the female soldiers will not obey me at the beginning, and in the end, I stripped off all the hair on my body and became a real white tiger. It turns out that the white tiger came here like this, haha. A serious person like Long Xiaoyun couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh like a sphere. Chen Haonan glanced at the other 3 instructors. He was slightly surprised by Thomas's resurrection. It seems that the high-tech products of the beautiful country are really awesome. Thomas felt Chen Haonan's vision fall on him. He immediately pouted indifferently, and made a gesture of you waiting, and then, he stood in front of Anthony and protested loudly. Even if the president of our country nods, I think it's very unfair, especially since the advantages of the woolly bear country are too obvious. They are all their own soldiers, and they must be obedient. Fair? Anthony looked at Thomas indifferently and snorted. When the three of you joined forces to deal with the Yenghua students at the top of the snow mountain, did you consider the word fairness? Now remember, be fair? I'm telling you, everyone here is qualified to come and ask me about fairness, but you are not a student from a beautiful country. You are used to being domineering, right? This is a Siberian concentration camp, not America. Get out. The tone was angry, and Thomas was speechless and embarrassed. The main thing is that the three of them did join forces, but they were killed by Chen Haonan, and they also fell into internal injuries, and they were pressed down by special potions, but the consequences were endless. FUCK, Anthony's account, I remember, and I'll slowly calculate with you later what kind of bargain each person can get in the hands of the beautiful country. Do you have any comments? If not, get on the plane and go to the Eastern Military District. Anthony's face was expressionless. He turned around and left with a wave of his big hand. He had already seen Thomas and others unhappy. Their strength and arrogance were more from the blessing of the world's hegemonic countries. Unlike his own righteous son Chen Haonan, he relied on real skills. That was a real hanging. Little master, there is more to this chapter. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The back is more exciting. Let's go. For us in the East, war represents injustice. Chen Haonan spoke in support of Anthony, took Long Xiaoyun's hand, and followed. After that, it was Pussy of the hairy bear country, who was so excited that he was like a child of more than 160 pounds. This is his territory, and he is in charge. In this project, the advantage is in me, and this time I have the best chance to get back to the field. Puth clenched his fists and looked at the child walking in front, and now, as if in a dream, he was actually beheaded by a child in the crotch at a global event. The helicopter flew directly to the Southeast Military District, where the three major joint combat units of the May 9th, 36th and the Group Army in the Far East were stationed, and the military strength was formidable. The wife of the Group Army is Commander Rox in Long Xiaoyun's mouth. This militant who grew up from the Special Forces, his life's energy is used to build the Sharp Knife Force, and his greatest wish is to build all the conventional troops into the military quality of Special Forces. The helicopter's huge propellers circled and landed at the airport, and then, Chen Haonan pulled Long Xiaoyun and followed Anthony to get off the plane. As soon as I got down, I immediately saw a tall soldier at least 190 tall, accompanied by a group of soldiers, striding over. Rox has a steady pace, a calm domineering spirit, standing in front of Anthony, a killing machine, and his temperament is not inferior. Anthony was the first to salute. It's a pleasure to see you again, General Rox. Instructor Anthony, this time I bothered you to train me again. Those little guys under me are still weaker, they don't meet my requirements. Thank you for your hard work. General, you're polite. The Alpha troops you brought out are first-class special operations troops. I can't talk about leading the troops. We've always been communicating with each other, and this event will trouble you. Rox kept nodding his head, and after a few polite words with Anthony, his eyes fell on the 8 people behind him and looked around. Welcome to the Eastern Military Region to participate in the competition of the world's strongest instructors, and our military region will definitely provide you with the best resources to let you play your strength. Just when Rox was giving a passionate speech, Long Xiaoyun leaned over Chen Haonan's ear and panted slightly. This Commander Ross is not as generous as he said on the surface. He is a very grudgeful person. He has been busy with work for many years. His wife ran away with a second lieutenant. He personally piloted the fighter plane, launched missiles, and destroyed the mutinous wife and mistress. This matter has been reported in the news. Anyway, if he cannot be offended, he must not be offended, otherwise, he can do anything. Hearing this, Chen Haonan appreciated it. This is the true temperament. If Comrade Shofei had such a temper, he would have burned the mattress he bought a long time ago, and left it to sleep with a bald head? Just as his thoughts were flying, suddenly, Rose asked loudly, "Who is Chen Haonan, a soldier of the Yen country?" As he spoke, he swept over everyone's bodies, not noticing the child being pulled by Long Xiaoyun at all. In the past, Chen Haonan won the Order of the Dead in Siberia, and he was not very interested in a big man of the level of Ross. After all, no matter how strong a person's individual quality is, what can he affect on a large-scale battlefield? Unless you're a good conductor, or a chief instructor like Anthony. Just now Anthony told him that the first project champion was Comrade Chen Haonan from the East, and he became interested. After all, Pusk was the captain of Alpha who he was very optimistic about. but he didn't expect to be killed by Chen Haonan. Said that he was interested, but it was better to say that he was a little unhappy. He felt a little green on the top of his head, and the green hat was put on by Chen Haonan, pussy, but he was his own person. Report, I'm Chen Haonan. With an indifferent smile, Chen Haonan stood up and looked at the tall Eastern commander. You? Commander Ross was a little stunned. My God, he saw an 8 or 9-year-old child, looking at him with a cold face. People who didn't know, they thought he was the commander, and he himself was a soldier who made mistakes. Yes, his eyes gave people the feeling, that's it. General, he is Chen Haonan, the strongest dead soldier in the history of the Siberian concentration camp. In this exercise, in the first project, one person broke the alliance of the two camps, and his championship price is real. Staring at Chen Haonan for 15 or 16 seconds, Commander Ross didn't speak, and his green eyes emitted a strange light. Under his coercion, few people can bear it. His wife cheated on an excellent ensign. The ensign who gave him a green hat was stared at by him for 5 or 6 seconds, and then knelt down and admitted. After that, he told the other party, give you an hour, you make a choice, either commit suicide in front of me and apologize, I will tell your family, you committed suicide in fear of sin, or, you leave with my wife. At that time, the second lieutenant looked at him in surprise. He didn't expect the commander to be so big, and he actually let his wife take him away, so he did not hesitate to make the second option, and the result was he was shot down by a missile. Little guy, Pruth is the righteous son I brought out personally, you killed him, it doesn't give me face, huh? Commander Ross smiled heartily, but let Anthony next to him twitch his mouth several times. He knew what the other party's personality was. He laughed happily, but he was unhappy inside. Chen Haonan looked at him coldly and said indifferently, Commander, your expression tells me that you are very unhappy. Why do you say that? Commander Ross couldn't hold back a little on his face. He walked into Chen Haonan and leaned over to stare at him. His gaze was like a sharp knife, which made people look at him. Give me a horse, right, as Long Xiaoqi said, this commander is very stingy, and he hides a knife in his smile. Chen Haonan's handsome little face always had an indifferent smile. This is a ball. Lao Tzu doesn't want to call him grandpa in the face of the hawkish boss of Yenghua. You put pressure on me? Interesting, interesting. Rose's forced eyes were retracted. Haha smiled. This time he was really laughing. This little guy's calmness won his appreciation. Unlike the ensign who slept with his wife, dared to sleep, he was so frightened in front of himself that he knelt down. It was just a straw bag. He deserved to be fed missiles. It's not much. There is the momentum of a dead soldier. I'll give you a month. You bring out a qualified dead soldier special combat team. Can you do it? Bob. Report, I'm not a little guy. Besides, I have to ask your soldiers, if they are willing to cooperate. They want to be dead soldiers. I have a way, they don't want to be good soldiers. Commander, you can't help it, don't you? Rose was stunned for a moment, grinned, nodded and said, don't worry, the soldiers for you are the most obedient excellent soldiers, and in a month, I will personally lead the team and kill your team. Report, Commander, as long as your soldiers are okay, it is not yet known who will kill whom. Ha ha ha. Rose's saliva from laughter sprayed on the faces of Thomas, de Gaulle, and others in front of him. The three of them did not move, and they did not wipe the saliva from their faces. They could see that this commander was deliberate, and if you erase it, he will continue to vomit new ones, and whoever does not believe it will be unlucky. As for Puth, he is already accustomed to eating the saliva of his commander. 1 team, 2 teams, 3 teams, 4 teams. With Ross's low drink, 4 groups of 10 fully armed soldiers, marching in a neat pace, lined up, standing in front of Chen Haonan and the others, to be reviewed. On the face of it, all 4 teams are pretty good. Tall and good, the key is that he has a fierce temperament, and a wave of slaughter is coming. Judging from his eyes, he is the kind of excellent soldier who has experienced 100 battles. Commander Ross swept over Thomas and the others again, spitting out saliva. You can make your own choice, or you can give your opinion and give you 5 minutes to communicate. Little Master, there is more to this chapter. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The back is more exciting. After saying that, Commander Ross turned to Long Xiaoyun's side and had a cordial conversation with her. In the process, he didn't squirt out any saliva, and changed from a squirting warrior to a polite gentleman. Here, Thomas muttered in a low voice, FUCK, the rules of such an event, it is better to directly announce that the champion is the woolly bear country, the people are theirs, and the rules are also formulated by them. It is even more domineering than our country, and there is no need to play. With that, he glanced at Pers. Puss smiled pleasantly. No matter what, he had a huge advantage, and it was enough to remain silent at this time, and Lei Jia didn't speak. It's really not over, and it is said that these people are a fighting nation, with a straightforward personality, bold, and seemingly thick-eyed, but they are more insidious than the Japanese who drain the sea. The head of the Dai Gao band was also indignant. They spoke in a low voice, specifically for Pers, but not on Commander Ross's side. Pussy continued to be secretly cool and didn't say a word, but he looked at Chen Haonan's child several times strangely. Because at this moment, this unfathomable child stood there silently, being a quiet and beautiful man. Is he so calm? Is he confident? Of course, no one knows what Chen Haonan is thinking. For him, any soldier, it's the same, he is strong himself. It is in the heart of such a strong man that Chen Haonan stands there with his head straight and his neck straight, and he is as light as a chrysanthemum. On the other side, Commander Luo was communicating with Long Xiaoyun. In fact, he kept squinting at the reactions of the audience. Everyone was complaining about the unfair environment, unhappy here, unfavorable to themselves there. Only the youngest child in the East stood there indifferently, without saying a word, giving people a sense of unshakability. This took him by surprise. People who don't know, they still think that this child is an adult, and the other three people who are chattering are children, and they waste time on their tongues. Comrade Long Xiaoyun, I am full of expectations for you players in the East. Long Xiaoyun nodded with a smile and gave Commander Rove a charming smile. Commander Ross, he will definitely live up to your hopes. Rove nodded. I'm a little strange, it's you Oriental, why do you reuse an 8 or 9-year-old child? For our country, no matter how good a child is, he should also be studying in school at this time. Long Xiaoyun's smile remained unchanged. What we pay attention to in the East is that if the youth is strong, the country will be strong, the youth will be strong on the earth, and the country will be strong on the earth. Do you think it makes sense? If the youth is stronger than the earth, the country is stronger than the earth. Commander Rove pondered this sentence carefully, feeling a strong momentum and confidence, and finally he nodded. I understand, good choice. Leaving Long Xiaoyun's side, he walked to the front of the 4 teams and said loudly, you are all the best soldiers of Alpha. Obedience is the first order of the soldiers. No matter who is your instructor, you must absolutely obey, otherwise, directly withdraw from the Alpha Special Forces. This is a military order, understand no? Understood. The crowd roared loudly. In this way, the 3 captains who were arguing immediately fell silent, and looked at the 4 teams solemnly, and the game was about to begin. Commander Rove continued, although this is an exercise, the video will be transmitted to your country's troops. I hope you will pay attention to this event, take it seriously, and give satisfactory answers. I am also a very serious person, I hate loose soldiers. In my dictionary, only the strong have dignity. If the performance of your 4 instructors makes me dissatisfied, sorry, you will lose face and throw it all over the world, understand? After Commander Luo said this, no one responded, including Chen Haonan himself, who also had a strange expression. Understand is understand, but Chen Haonan feels that Instructor Anthony, playing a little big, out of the principle of the event, made, ask the general of the Woolly Bear country to personally act, train his soldiers, such a brainhole. I don't know how to come up with it. After all, each country's special forces training has its own secrets, just like the beautiful country, France. They will use the real secret means on Alpha? And then let them steal the teacher? Thomas and de Gaulle, why don't they respond? They are not two fools. Secret training methods, they must not be used, otherwise if you go back, you may become a criminal who leaks the secrets of the army. But the problem is, if you don't use real technology, you can win. This is a very contradictory thing, and I pay great attention to the wisdom and means of the captain, especially how to get these people to obey you. Only Chen Haonan has no psychological pressure at all. He has not undergone the systematic training of wolf teeth at all. He is completely born in the wild road, relying on the forcible rise of the hanging, coupled with the reuse of his father-in-law. He directly formed his own team, not to mention revealing his own secrets. As for the growth of the White Tiger soldiers, in addition to having a certain talent, they mainly rely on the Snow Mountain, the favorite of the principal. This natural treasure can forcibly improve Chen Haonan's body host, and the effect of strengthening is almost the same. It is terrifying. The resources of the Mao Bear country are too rich, they are all here. During the exercise, you must use the skills of Fingzi Monogatari to dig more, and the principal's friends also need it. You can sell it to him at a high price, and it was cheaper last time. Thinking of this, Chen Haonan showed a smile of a small wealth fan. Pressure? It's not stressful at all, just do it. If anyone knew Chen Haonan's thoughts, he would still want to make a fortune at this time, and he would definitely be shocked. This time, I was tricked by Demao, and it was difficult to ride a tiger, so I could only take one step at a time. Thomas's face is gloomy. Quit, it's impossible to quit, no matter who gets the strongest instructor, it means that the whole world recognizes the special level of this country, standing at the top of the world, who doesn't blush? Little Master, there is more to this chapter, please click on the next page to continue reading, the back is more exciting. For this title, Thomas was also pricked with a needle. De Gaulle and his team leader are also so annoyed and helpless, special training is their secret, and they don't want to be shared, but if they don't train seriously, the title of the strongest instructor will fall on someone else's body, which is even more unacceptable. Just when everyone was confused, Commander Rove gave the order that he could pick his own team. As soon as his words fell, in the sound of clattering footsteps, Chen Haonan walked out first. His eyes squinted over these hairy men, and relying on his skills to catch the wind and shadows, he could feel that that guy was the most hostile to him, and those people had kindness towards him. Chen Haonan looked at this group of men with proud eyes, and these men also looked at him as a little bit. Some people had their mouths bulging, obviously wanting to laugh, but they couldn't help it, which reminded people of the two policemen in The Mermaid. If you want to laugh, you can laugh, there is no need to endure so hard. Chen Haonan didn't speak, it was okay. His serious expression, coupled with his serious tone, made many people on the scene laugh with a pop, not that they didn't respect Alpha's discipline, but they really couldn't hold back. This little one, he looks like a little with a cold expression and a cool temperament, but when he reaches the base of their thighs, he steps over like a general who was reviewing his own soldiers, and those who laugh are thinking of the children who rushed towards him when he was on vacation. It's really like a child of a few years old. He likes to pose as Chen Haonan in front of his military father. Shut up! The laughter of the crowd was like an invisible slap in the face of Rove, who had just praised them as the best soldiers. With the commander's roar, everyone immediately stopped moving. Chen Haonan's eyes fell on the only person in the team who didn't smile, and asked, "What's your name?" "Report, sir." "Ha ha ha." The soldier with a flat head gave a quick look at his commander, and then apologized. "I'm sorry, I just reacted, my name is Doyle, sir." This guy is as slow as a pig. Chen Haonan looked at this Doyle's reaction and thought of a joke. A group of animals fled together. The boat was about to sink when crossing the river, so everyone proposed to tell a joke. If you can't make other animals laugh, just jump into the river. Brother Nyo told a joke, all the animals laughed, only the pig didn't laugh. Brother Nyo had no choice but to jump into the river. It was the donkey's turn to laugh. Everyone didn't laugh, only the pig laughed, saying that he finally understood why Brother Nyo's joke was so funny. "Tell me why you're laughing." Doyle did not hesitate at all, and said loudly, "Report, sir, Puss is my brother, you sniped him in the snow mountain, and the people in the army say that he, the sniper king, is not even an 8 or 9-year-old child. I think this is a fatal blow to my brother Puss. In fact, I am hostile to you, it is not funny." This sentence made everyone stare at Doyle, only Puth clenched his fists and roared, "Good brother." Everyone looked at Chen Haonan, no one laughed, they were all looking at his jokes, how to deal with this rude Doyle. "Tell me, what's your strongest attack?" Doyle was a little stunned and looked at this child with a cold temperament, a little unable to react, but he still stiffened his neck and said loudly, "Custody, sir, my best thing is hand-to-hand combat." In terms of fighting, Doyle has a natural advantage. He is tall, with a tiger's back and a bear's waist, his muscles are like crawling pythons under the tight military uniform, full of fierce momentum, and his hands are backwards, like a hammer, thicker than Chen Haonan's thighs. The two of them are not of the same grade at all in terms of volume. A faint but immature voice sounded. "I'll give you a chance, I only have one hand, challenge your martial arts. If you can force me back, even if I don't pass as an instructor, I will give up the game." After speaking, Chen Haonan took a step back, turned his right hand back, pinned it to his waist, and played a sheik. Looking at the other party's small appearance, Doyle couldn't laugh. In his opinion, it was completely insulting. He is an alpha fighting master, an elite soldier, and a child actually said to him, "Let you have one hand, you can't beat me?" Doyle said angrily, "Report, even if you are an instructor, you can't say such things to insult me." "Insults? Did you think about this when you laughed just now?" "Okay, don't talk so much nonsense, beat me, laugh as you like. By the way, remind you, I'm the dead soldier #1 of the Siberian concentration camp, didn't your instructor tell you?" Doyle didn't dare to call the shots, and subconsciously looked at his commander, and then, he was happy to see his commander nod his head slightly. In fact, Commander Rove also wanted to touch Chen Haonan's bottom to see if he, the strongest death number 1 in the world, was as tough as Instructor Anthony said. "Sir, then you're welcome, don't worry, the way we respect our friends is to go all out." Doyle stepped out of the ranks. In this way, everyone's eyes fell on Chen Haonan. No one could have imagined that this little guy would directly challenge Doyle, who is the strongest in martial arts. To be honest, in hand-to-hand combat, Puss, who represented the woolly bear country, was not Doyle's opponent. In front of these eyes, Chen Haonan stood indifferently, putting aside his perverted 17 physical attributes, just the skills related to martial arts. There are as many as 4 or 5, such as the story of the wind, chasing the wind and shadows, all-round perspective, one-stop service skills, etc., each of which has a strong auxiliary effect, plus the big X leg method practiced in Northwest Lia. The strongest fighting king in Alpha, Chen Haonan still has this confidence. He wants to learn from his predecessors, face the challenges of foreigners, and use the martial arts of the Yin Kingdom to establish his power. This is also the key to the success of the team. Doyle, let this little guy know how powerful Alpha is, don't keep your hands. Yes, hit him, don't have any burden in your heart, this child is not simple. In the face of these Alpha Special Forces, Commander Luo did not stop. On the contrary, standing beside Long Xiaoyun, he also showed an indifferent smile, looking like he was waiting to see a good show. As for Thomas, they haven't actually seen Chen Haonan's martial arts, and they want to see it. Just when everyone was pregnant with ghosts, Chen Haonan didn't speak. He turned his head first, turned his back to Doyle, and his indifferent voice sounded. "You're ready to shoot." This sentence, with his standing posture with his back to Doyle, everyone was stunned, and Doyle was stimulated by Chen Haonan's direct rude words. The young man was prone to big heads, and directly turned the young man's face red. He deceived people so much that he was angry. In Alpha, no one has ever dared to face him Doyle, and then let him shoot, not a single one. Usually he fights 10 at a time. Even in the face of his brother Puss, he dares to say, "Puss, I am inferior to you in sniping, but in combat, the 3 Puss are not as good as me." Puss could only nod obediently, bowing his eyebrows in approval. It's like this child, the smell of milk has not dried, first let himself have one hand, and now, he turns his back directly, which feels too insulting. Of course, he didn't know Chen Haonan's sassy operation. Relying on his all-round perspective skills, he tempted Miyamoto-kun to make a move, and he was directly abolished by him. Doyle made a move. With a roar, the playground was full of his angry roar. His left foot slammed to the ground, and his body soared out, like a lion hunting in the African savannah, rushing towards Chen Haonan. At the same time, his right elbow was bent, retracted, and his clenched fist was like a hammer, bombarding the little guy facing him. This chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The distance is rapidly approaching, and the distance of 3 meters is just a few words. Doyle is very confident in his strength, and his attack power is more than 500 pounds. Except for Long Xiaoyun and Anthony, everyone looked at Chen Haonan's eyes, and they were full of ridicule, as if they saw this kid flying out directly under Doyle's iron fist, vomiting blood and falling to the ground. Syllable. Just when everyone was watching Chen Haonan be beaten to vomit blood, suddenly, he turned around in the air, and his right leg made a sound of blasting air, and threw it on Doyle's body. It came too fast. Doyle's fist didn't block it, but the whole person was kicked and flew more than 3 meters away, and fell to the ground hard. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became heavy, especially those who were afraid of Chen Haonan, and they felt cold directly behind their backs. The whip leg just now, the picture they saw was that Chen Haonan seemed to have eyes behind him. He seemed to know the position of Doyle's attack in advance, and directly bypassed Doyle's fist and kicked Dale's chest hard. The power is too strong. Doyle struggled on the ground, got up, shook his military uniform, and raised his hand to point at Chen Haonan. "You." Vomit. He didn't finish his words, he just bent over his knees and spat on the ground. Don't you want to exaggerate that? This thought rose in everyone's hearts. After all, the distance that Doyle flew was not too far, including Thomas himself, thinking that his full kick was enough to make Doyle fly out 6 or 7 meters, and he only flew more than 3 meters just now. This is the shortcoming of small and weak people. Considering that you have to participate in the next event, I just used 30% of my strength. Otherwise, you wouldn't be as simple as vomiting. Your internal organs will be turned into pieces and spit out directly. Chen Haonan stood indifferently and said awe-inspiringly.
It's just that the meaning of his words made everyone present in an uproar. These 3 successes? According to this meaning, he can kick Doyle out more than 10 meters? And then just vomit blood and die? Blow it, don't want money anyway. You have a point, I throw in the towel. Just when everyone thought that Chen Haonan was the strongest king, Doyer, who had been vomiting for a while, was very shameful and directly admitted defeat. Doyle was convinced when he admitted defeat. When he attacked Chen Haonan just now, he didn't have any protection at all, and he also estimated that Chen Haonan might have to fight back, but unfortunately, he couldn't stop it at all, and he was kicked directly. As for this little guy's strength, I'm afraid it's about the same. Whoever is beaten, who knows? Very well, yours and your teammates, follow me. Doyle held back the tumbling of his heart and asked in surprise, what do you mean? You chose my squad? Aren't you sober enough? Do you want to do it again? Doyle's color changed slightly, and he couldn't help asking, but why? Because you're stupid enough. I don't like people who react too quickly, those people aren't kind enough. For this reason, Doyle thought for a while, but he couldn't figure it out, so he immediately called out his team and followed Chen Haonan. After coming to the other side of the playground, Chen Haonan's role began to change, becoming the instructor of this team for a month. According to Commander Rowe's military order, these 10 people must obey unconditionally. Through the kung fu of chasing after the wind and shadows, Chen Haonan can quickly guess the vigilant, resentful, angry, and jealous thoughts of these men. Look at your expressions, see that I am very unconvinced. It doesn't matter, each of you has the opportunity to show your strongest ability. As long as you can beat me in the field of your expertise, I will immediately give up returning to China and no longer participate in this event. As soon as the words fell, an alpha soldier immediately stood up. Report, instructor, I will absolutely obey Commander Rowe's military orders, but I want to challenge your sniper. I don't believe you can defeat Rose, he is my squad leader. Chen Haonan looked at him indifferently. Give me your gun. As a result, after the sniper rifle, Chen Haonan flipped it a few times, and asked casually, how far is your biggest sniper record? Report, instructor, I don't like to brag. I'm talking about a sure distance, 1,500 meters, my hit rate can reach more than 90%. Very well, tell me, where is the target 2,500 meters from here? This. Instructor, you mean? The guy was a little overwhelmed. So, Chen Haonan pointed to the colorful flags flying far away and said, is this distance 2,500 meters? After the other party nodded subconsciously, Chen Haonan's muzzle was raised and the trigger was suddenly hooked, and in the process, he didn't have any aiming action at all. Boom! Bullets whizzed out. Under the surprised eyes of everyone, the colored flag, which had become a small dot, was interrupted, and floated out with the wind, taking away everyone's sorrow. Oh, my God! 2,500 meters, you can hit it at will, without the slightest aim. This is the titanium alloy dog eye that comes with it, and it also has an automatic lock function? You try. Chen Haonan didn't give everyone time to react, and returned the sniper rifle to the stiff soldier. This young alpha soldier, his body trembled visibly, and he almost lost his sniper rifle. No, I can't, I'm throwing in the towel. He had tried many times before, and occasionally he was lucky enough to hit, but it was a random hit like Chen Haonan. It was a miracle of the night in Moscow, and it wouldn't happen to him anyway. The fighting nation is quite cute. Before you do it, you have to do it to death. You can't do it. They are also very single. Don't think that they are not afraid of death. Who else? Chen Haonan roared angrily, and the sound was very loud. Instructor, I'd like to compete with you in wrestling. Very good, you can do it. You don't have to take off your clothes, I'm sensitive to long hair. Yes, instructor, then I'm going to take it off. This is my country's respect for wrestlers. I can't help it. When I formed a White Tiger Special Combat Team in China, I developed some not very good problems. Are you sure you really take it off? Yes, instructor. As he spoke, the soldier, who was covered with thick white hair, pounced viciously towards Chen Haonan, and his colleague exaggerated the hair on his body. A minute later. Don't pull it out, it hurts, my hair. A soldier with an alpha look at the little man riding on his comrade with a shocked face, turned into an automatic hair plucking machine, was quickly uprooting the thick hair of the man under his crotch piece by piece, and scattered into the air, and the white hair flew in an instant, accompanied by a scream.
The poor soldier, no matter how he struggled, couldn't get out. He could only change from a long-haired man to a white tiger soldier in the whale. His thighs, chest, abdomen, and even neck, all the long hair was plucked out by Chen Haonan, and not a single one was left. Originally, Chen Haonan wanted to take off his pants and get rid of all his troubles, but Captain Baikal stood up and interceded on behalf of this poor white tiger. "Instructor, I'll admit defeat in his place, let him go, and if you pull it out like this, he will become you Oriental." "I'm sorry, I'm used to taking female soldiers. Maybe you don't know, my principle of leading soldiers is, if you can't beat me, you have to pull out the body and punish it. Just now I saw him take off his clothes, which caused my obsessive-compulsive disorder to attack. I didn't hold back, I definitely didn't mean anything about him. I persuaded him, he didn't listen." Listening to Chen Haonan's aggrieved tone, everyone was silent. "Okay, next, who has a stronger challenge?" "The soldier. You go take a shower and come back, I'll give you 10 minutes. The poor alpha soldier, clutching his crotch, ran away from the playground. Long Xiaoqi, who had been watching the excitement next to him, laughed directly into a bun. "It's so funny, Chen Haonan obviously wants to play with these proud alpha soldiers, and rub all their arrogance on the ground, but his way is. It's really hard to laugh." When he saw the fourth person, who was lifted high by Chen Haonan, and then covered his ears, saying that he couldn't hear that the other party was denying the loss, Long Xiaoyun really smiled and leaned back and forth, and his charming mind was like spring grass for 4 days of spring, swing and swing with the wind, and he couldn't stop at all, laughing so much that tears flowed down his mouth. Who else? On the playground, there was a fierce roar of milk. And at this moment, the other 3 instructors also challenged their team, and brought people over to start training. Before they had time to speak, they saw a commotion on Chen Haonan's side, those proud alpha soldiers, 2 foaming at the mouth on the ground, one with a bare upper body, covering his face and running wildly outside the playground. Doyle, who was standing on the sidelines, was directly stunned, and the remaining 6, standing there, kept trembling, and no one dared to respond. What a strong evil spirit! Alpha soldier looked at Chen Haonan's expression, like a disobedient child, who dared to be angry when he saw his stern father, and absolutely did not dare to move. It was only a little more than an hour, and all of them challenged Chen Haonan, and as a result, in their strongest field, they were all pressed to the ground and without exception. No matter how unconvinced and unhappy the arrogant alpha soldiers are, they have to admit the fact that they can't kill this kid. Chen Haonan didn't care what these people thought, and said indifferently, "Today's training is over, tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning, gather here." After saying that, he turned around and left, leaving behind the alpha soldier who was preparing for special training, and just watched his little cute back disappear. That's it? The alpha soldier glanced at it, and the other teams next to him who were still training were all stunned, confused, and completely at a loss. They saw that the beautiful Chinese female officer didn't say anything, didn't ask, and directly caught up with the little instructor and left hand in hand. Is this special training? Captain Baikal, this kid in the east, what is he thinking, suddenly leaving it alone, or waiting for tomorrow to train us again? Finally, someone couldn't help but ask. Baikal, as the captain, shook his head helplessly, I don't know. But I can say for sure that the title of the strongest instructor in the world will definitely not fall on this kid in the east, and it is most likely our Puss Sniper King. Speaking of the king of snipers, Baikal was a little weak-hearted. He had also seen the video of the Battle of the Snow-Capped Mountains, and the 4 of Puss joined forces, and they were all sniped by the children of the east, one by one, which was quite embarrassing. Captain, after all, he is the strongest dead soldier in history. To be honest, I want to learn some skills from him. The vice captain, Dower, put forward a different opinion. Baikal snorted coldly, do you think the instructors of other countries will teach us real skills? What they have to do is just to find ways to make us submit, obedient, and then play a role in the exercise. Doyle shrugged his shoulders. If I were an instructor, I would do the same. After all, our country is different, but I still want to learn his skills, his fighting skills, which reminds me of Tang Long in 98 battles and 97 KOs, who is also an Oriental, and uses the big axe leg method. You know, Tang Long is my idol. Dissatisfied glanced at the vice captain. Baikal's face was covered with frost. Doyle, put away your careful thoughts, your martial arts can't beat this kid, it's really embarrassing, but it doesn't mean that the other party will teach you martial arts, you martial idiot. I tell you, the strongest instructor can only be Puss. No matter how strong these instructors are, it is impossible, unless they abandon their country and join our country immediately. Doyle nodded silently at this point. Indeed, Commander Rove will not let this title fall on the heads of other countries, and he is the one who encircles and suppresses him, so there is a lot of room for maneuver. Doyle looked at the hair removal brother who came back with clean clothes, and smiled. If he had the opportunity, he really wanted to become Chun Haonan's apprentice. As long as he could learn martial arts, he didn't mind apprenticeship. He had a yearning for the mysterious oriental martial arts, but unfortunately he never had the opportunity. When he grew up, Tang Long died.
Born ahead of one's time. Now, there is another instructor who is too young, and life is not as good as it should be. A large restaurant with a strong aroma and a strong atmosphere. Anthony, the chief instructor, was enjoying coffee when he was surrounded by two officers leading the team. The officers are all instructors who lead the team, and their positions are similar to Long Xiaoyun's. Long Xiaoyun went to see Chen Haonan leading the team to train. The two of them joined forces and kissed Anthony in various ways, but they didn't do Anthony. As long as they were angry, they didn't make it clear in advance. The second project was actually to help Mao Xiongwa train special forces, and he had to face the encirclement and suppression of the commander of Mao Xiongwa, which was equivalent to directly leaving the champion in their country. Can you not be angry? Out of anger. Instructor Anthony, you are confused. Your concentration camps have long fallen off Russia. Why should you follow the orders of the military and choose such cooperation with them, which is not the same as giving them all the initiative? What does this make the military all over the world think of you, and in the future, will anyone still believe in your profession? Your Excellency, according to the rules you set, it is directly determined that the Russians are the champions. What is there to compare? To waste a month here, I have applied to my country to oppose this event. Anyway, we won't train the people of the hairy bear country. They don't deserve elegance. They all look like long-haired monsters. They have a bad temper. The food is either sausages or big fish. There is no elegance at all. The France Mark lit a cigar for himself. Compared to Wilson, an officer of the beautiful country, he looked elegant, calm, and not afraid, but in his words, he was not polite at all. Changed the angle of the Russians, and said that the hair on their bodies, one by one, seemed to be monsters. The female instructor in the East, she didn't come at this time. She was watching her subordinates lead the team. Women are not in a hurry. You are in a hurry. Anthony smiled and lit himself a huge cigar. Wilson turned his head to look at the entrance and blurted out, "No, they're here too. The kids are here. It seems that they're here to complain, and this time should be in training." The France Mark smiled elegantly. They are more anxious than us, and they came hand in hand, which is very interesting. Looking at the men and women at the entrance, Anthony took it easy, and said to Aunt Susan, "Prepare delicious food for them." This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. After speaking, he beckoned to Chen Haonan. "Child, come to me. By the way, I forgot to introduce to you, Chen Hao, my son. We have determined the relationship in the last event." Yoshiko. Mark and Wilson glanced at each other, and their faces suddenly became ugly. God, this black and white match can be a father and a son? Chen Haonan pulled Long Xiaoyun over, and subconsciously, he also wanted to pull Long Xiaoqi to sit on his lap, and when he sat down, Xiaoqi found that something was wrong, so he covered his mouth and quickly withdrew, moved a chair and sat next to Chen Haonan. "I've been holding hands for too long, and I always feel like I'm in love." Long Xiaoyun's reaction to himself was also inexplicable, blaming this child, always calling himself Xiaoqi, saying that he was his seventh girlfriend, coupled with his personal charm. Over time, there was actually a feeling of being attacked by a little man. Anthony looked at Yoshiko's handsome little face, reversed the cold expression just now, and asked, "Didn't you train with them?" Chen Haonan said indifferently, "This event, it seems unfair. In fact, the assessment is still personal ability, whether to lead the team to train. In fact, it is not critical. It is better to be familiar with the geography and human conditions here, the cultural environment." The instructor, "Do you have a complete map? Give me a copy." Anthony laughed and patted his thigh. "Child, you should call me father-in-law. I have no children and no special hobbies. I have a lot of assets in my name. You are my son. You will not suffer. You will get at least $1 billion, and a large number of collectibles, including gold pistols, gold rifles, gold sniper rifles, and already 10 gold sports cars. Sports cars are my only hobby. Instructor, I'm not short of money. By the way, pay me the bonus last time. Bet 100 million. You should give me $100 million. Chen Haonan stretched out his little hand. Anthony handed a black bank card to Chen Haonan, but his mouth scolded. Damn principal, he repented, but he was willing to pay 3 times the multiplier, so it was only 300 million.
Chen Haonan took the black card, and his small mouth hooked up a dissatisfied expression. Please tell the principal, I may not necessarily help his friend find snow ginseng, he is too good at being a man. Anthony, cold as frost, similar to the stone maiden, was amused by the little one. Have you seen it? This event can not only improve his reputation, but also make money. He has earned $300 million, and what he buys is to win by himself, which is very fair, and it is not allowed to buy what he loses. Anthony, who stared at the two silent instructors, his expression became serious. You have also heard, the most important thing is to look at personal ability. If you spend time on training, is 1 month enough? Understand that it is impossible. As for Commander Rove will do his hands, you can rest assured, this time it is a global real-time live broadcast. Justice is in the hearts of the people. If it is an internal decision, even if the champion falls on the head of Russia, it is useless. The strength that is not recognized by everyone, does not have political capital, with the wisdom of the two, must understand what I mean? Words are like knives that pierce Mark and Wilson's hearts. Indeed, as Anthony said, 1 month is not enough to bring out an excellent instructor, so what is this time for? The answer, this kid has already given. He needed a map to explain the human geography here, which is the talent of a good instructor, the interpretation of the battlefield. Instructor Anthony, you have a point, I'll take my leave first. I have something to do, so let's get out of here first. Mark and the others hurriedly left the restaurant, obviously going to their captain to discuss countermeasures. Chen Haonan, a child, has seen through the essence of acting, and he is still training seriously like a fool. It seems that it has lost at the starting line. You've seen through the essence, spoken out, and aren't afraid to share? Instructor, I'm giving you the stairs, and, as you said, if you want to win, you have to win the hearts and minds of the world. This information is nothing, the key is to rely on yourself. Chen Haonan said casually, with a small expression. He raised his hand and said to Aunt Susan, Sister, give me a Russian meal, I want caviar, borscht, if it's free, bring me two. Of course it's free, kid. Aunt Susan, who was called Young, showed a happy expression, and then turned her head to look at Long Xiaoyun happily. Long Xiaoyun smiled. According to his there is another one of my 2 sausages, plus 2 Russia eggs. After the food was delivered, Chen Haonan looked at Long Xiaoyun, who was stuffing 2 oily sausages into his mouth at the same time, and couldn't help but show an expression of admiration. Xiaoqi, you are much more powerful than my cousin Yi Tsuanqin at this point. She also likes to eat sausages and eggs, but at most she stuffs 1 sausage, which is weaker than your swallowing skills. Long Xiaoyun swallowed a big bite, chewed and swallowed a big sausage, with a pleasant expression. As a soldier, you have to be vigorous and resolute in everything, including eating. This ability is practiced. At the beginning, I could only eat 1 sausage, now it is not a big problem to eat 2 at the same time. In another year or 2, maybe eat 3 at the same time. What is your expression? Chen Haonan lowered his face and buried himself in borscht, exclaiming in his heart, awesome, worthy of being a dragon. That Aunt Susan is so good to you, you didn't order sausages, and I gave them to you. Do you want to? If you don't, I will help you eat your sausages, they are delicious. Here you go. Chen Haonan pushed his plate and said with a smile, you have such a good appetite. Ha, can it be bad? This is the first time I have led a team, and I don't worry about it at all. Don't you know, as the squadron leader of the Wolf Warrior, I am like Aunt Susan, I have to worry about their food, but also about his training, their mood. Ling Feng, this ruffian confessed to me in the exercise, even if I don't have any feelings for his stinky brother, I have to take care of his mood. I am too tired to be a man. Little one, it's just you, I'm completely assured. You're always good at solving everything, you don't have to worry about me at all. Can my appetite be bad? Aunt Susan, bring me 3 more sausages. Chen Haonan, I'll show you what it means to import 3 sausages at the same time. Awesome, whoever marries you in the future will definitely be very happy. Chen Haonan sincerely sighed as an adult, and at the same time, put his hand on Long Xiaoyun's thigh to act as a temporary cushion. Long Xiaoyun laughed happily. This little guy can always tease himself, and his stomach hurts. Regardless of his height and age, he has the only standard of a male god. He is completely the shape he likes, strong, direct. Do it if he is not convinced, he will win. He never has to worry about it, he is simply someone else's child. She loved this little guy very much. She kept holding his hand and putting it on her lap. As for some of Chen Haonan's small movements, she went with him. Anyway, he was just a child. Anthony never left, with a gentle smile, looking at Long Xiaoyun and Chen Haonan, actually feeling the warmth of life in the two of them, one big and one small. Such a feeling, for soldiers who have been on the battlefield for a long time, there is really little contact. Next time, remember to call me stepfather. I have already spread the news, little guy, give me a little face, otherwise, I won't take you to make money. Chen Haonan touched Long Xiaoqi's thigh, felt the amazing bouncing power, enjoyed the feeling of sweet and sour borscht filling his mouth, and said without raising his head, "Can you be more mature? My father knows that I recognize an old black as my father, and he will break my legs." Anthony let out an exaggerated smile and shook the restaurant. "If you have the chance, I will go to your country, I will convince your father, and my mother who will conquer you." Chen Haonan made a big teasing bang on Anthony's face, and he was so anxious that he scolded, "Instructor, if you haven't learned Chinese well, you don't have to use anything to conquer, otherwise, I will challenge you." "Am I wrong?" Anthony looked at Long Xiaoyun, who pulled his pants suspiciously. "Cool, cool, cool." Long Xiaoyun laughed out loud with the sound of a goose. "Chen Haonan, are you sure you just let them go?" Chen Haonan had already calmed down from his mother's anger and sat in Long Xiaoyun's arms. "How is it possible? If you use it well, it will be a huge help. My principle is, I came, I saw it, and I conquered." At the training ground, Mark and Wilson hurried to the captains of their respective countries. "That kid in the east thinks mainly on his own, and there is no need to spend effort to bring these soldiers. Don't think about relying on people from other countries, people, rely on yourself." Mark and Wilson exchanged views with their respective captains, conveying Chen Haonan's views and making the two captains begin to ponder. In this sense, the Orientals completely abandoned team fighting? Of course, they can also see that relying on these alpha soldiers, they must not be able to count on victory, and they have also communicated privately that there is only one way to win the final victory. That's the decapitation operation. The captains of their country are not stupid, and they must know that the only way to win is to behead Commander Rove. Long Xiaoyun put the last shiny sausage into his mouth and said his opinion to Chen Haonan. Chen Haonan snapped his small palm. "Your opinion is very accurate. You are not a fool to get to this point. The main thing is to behead, however, the team can also use it, they know a lot of information, and information is the most important thing." Long Xiaoyun grabbed Chen Haonan's little hand on his thigh and asked, "Then what are you going to do next, so that you can really conquer them and get useful information?" Chen Haonan withdrew his little hand, lay his small body flat on Long Xiaoqi's thigh, and closed his eyes. "You'll know tomorrow. Come, give me a little relaxation. People don't grow up, there are such troubles. Once intense exercise, or multiple people exercise, I feel the numbness of the muscles and bones. People are old." Long Xiaoyun couldn't smile bitterly. She couldn't refuse the request of a strong and handsome boy, so she could only follow his request, put down her body and give him a careful massage. What he can do is help him relax, and he is desperately Chen Haonan. At 6 o'clock the next morning, in front of the Alpha group of 10, Chen Haonan stood coldly, like the chief of a military parade. "Soldiers, the honor of Daqin." Chen Haonan coughed, slightly embarrassed. When he first crossed over, he accompanied his mother to watch the drama every day, and read all the lines, and directly called the soldiers of Alpha as the soldiers of Daqin. Fortunately, these alphas don't understand what an emperor is through the ages. "Hold this position, yes, don't put your hands down without my orders." After saying the order, Chen Haonan ran to the recliner under the shade of the tree and lay down, leaving the alpha soldier who maintained a salute posture. Day 4, 6 o'clock in the morning. Today's training is to maintain a saluting posture every hour, with a 15-minute rest. After speaking, Chen Haonan continued to run to the chair next to him and look at the map. In the past 3 days, Long Xiaoyun has been with him, and she also knows that Chen Haonan has a set of military training. The White Tiger soldiers have won the National Special Combat Championship, and she has also been in contact with those female soldiers, and they are not ordinary White Tigers. But it was a salute for 3 days in a row, and she couldn't understand it. "Chen Haonan, you won't let them salute for a month, will you?" Chen Haonan looked at the map and geography magazine that Anthony gave him, and his little head didn't even raise up. "As a soldier, you just have to pay attention to your appearance. Is there a problem?" Long Xiaoyun's mouth seemed to be gagged by something, and he said helplessly, "Okay, it's good if you are sure. I don't dare to interfere with your training." If it weren't for Chen Haonan watching by himself and getting the strongest wolf warrior medal, Long Xiaoyun would have wanted to take off his pants and spank. But this little guy is a human spirit. Bing Shui is smart, he has never lost, and it is not strange if he can't understand it. "I am a pile driver." Long Xiaoyun continued to relax his little muscles and bones, and it snapped.
She was accepted, but the alpha soldiers on the scene began to take it unbearable. Another 3 days passed, and the soldiers broke out directly. "Report, instructor, why do you keep making us salute? It's a very pointless thing." "Yes, we are not a guard of honor, why do we train and salute every day?" "It's not that we didn't obey orders, but we need an explanation." In the face of the prominence of these special forces, Chen Haonan said indifferently, "You are not children. Where did you come from?" "There is only one answer, I am an instructor, and Commander Rove told me that you are absolutely obedient soldiers, and it has only been a few days, so you don't want to obey my orders." "Of course, if someone doesn't want to carry out my orders, I'll give him a chance, and if he wins me, he's free." This sentence made Alpha soldiers full of black lines, and they challenged it on the first day. No matter what posture they challenged, it was completely useless, and they were always crushed one by one. However, Chen Haonan's next sentence made them breathe a sigh of relief. "Tomorrow is the weekend, take a day off, and start training on a new program next week." "It's great, finally don't have to salute this week." They suspect that Chen Haonan is playing as a child, it is completely a game of playing house. Next week, Chen Haonan stood in front of them with a look on his face. For the next week's training program, stand in a military posture in the sun. A week Alpha's soldiers were dumbfounded, and it was such a boring training again. "Instructor, I'm against this kind of training, it's completely pointless." Chen Haonan squinted his eyes, swept over these people, and said indifferently, "If you don't obey the order, go and tell your commander Luo, don't ask me any opinions, I want soldiers who are absolutely obedient." After speaking, the little guy who turned into a shopkeeper completely ignored the murderous eyes of these people, and continued to walk to a shady place to read his illustration books. This chapter is not over, please click on the next page to continue reading. When Chen Haonan lay down, Long Xiaoyun played the role of and ran, like a club girl to relax and massage him. "Chen Haonan, let me analyze the situation of other groups with you. Russia is seriously ill. The training is very serious, covering physical fitness, shooting, and various tactical cooperation. As for the beautiful country in France, they are also training seriously, but it is mainly based on physical fitness. Only you, the little guy, either salute, or stand in a military posture. Are you sure there is no problem?" Chen Haonan buried his little head in the crook of Long Xiaoyun's leg to read, and said indifferently, "Everyone is a formality, I will train them in grooming, which is still a good thing." Long Xiaoyun was amused and laughed, "You're weird." At the headquarters, the correspondent stood in front of Commander Rove and was giving feedback on a week's training cleanup. "Commander, the training between the beautiful country and France, as long as it is physical fitness and teamwork tactics, professional special training, they don't mention it at all. The most outrageous is the kid in the East, I don't know why, the team he led is either a salute or a team, and when they are recruits after the training." After hearing this information, Rove frowned and stroked his scalp vigorously. "Other people are passive and slacking off, he can understand. What is that kid going to do? Do you play games? The dragon instructor who led the team, what does she do every day?" The correspondent suddenly laughed, and then returned to seriousness. "She is a nanny, secretary, club girl, either taking care of the child's daily life, or accompanying him to read the map, massaging him, relaxing his muscles and bones. Completely as a training ground is the clubhouse." The child also moved his hands and feet several times. I saw him obviously touching the thigh of the female officer. Ignoring the inappropriateness in the communicator's tone, Commander Rove showed a surprised expression and asked, "What map are they looking at, and where did they come from?" The map was provided by Instructor Anthony. "It is about the distribution of our jungle, and the ecological environment." "That kid looks like he is still studying, is he a part-time soldier?" Commander Rove's expression was a little dignified, and he kept nodding. "It's a little interesting, this kid is not simple." On the playground, the scorching sun made the alpha soldiers of these teams sunburned and greasy, and after someone fainted, they rested for a while, replenished their water, and came back to continue to stand in a military posture, not for anything else, just to not want to be looked down upon by a child, and find an excuse to scold them for not being a qualified soldier. Among these soldiers, Chen Haonan's orders were strictly enforced, and only Dower, who wanted to become his apprentice, was always standing in line seriously, and he did not complain or communicate. Captain Baikal glanced at Chen Haonan, who was not far away, and said to Doyle, "Doyle, you don't have to be so serious, don't you know how to fight, you are like a zombie." Doyle said solemnly, "Captain, I feel that he is taking the postgraduate examination for us, and only by passing his postgraduate examination will he teach us the real ability." Looking at his side team helplessly, Baikal said, "Why do you have such an idea?"
"Captain, I admire his fighting skills. His leg method comes from my idol Tang Long. This is a strengthened version of the big axe leg method. I want to learn this. I rarely admire a person. You imagine that when you were 9 years old, you were chased all over the street by your mother. He has become the strongest dead soldier in Siberia. I asked instructor Anthony. He said that he didn't teach him much.
Most of them were his own feelings. Captain, isn't such a person worthy of admiration? He is no ordinary child. You've gone mad."
After being silent for a long time by these words, Baikal finally scolded in a low voice, but when he didn't notice, his military posture was much sharper. Doyle is a person, his personality is like Forrest Gump. To be honest, Baikal has never seen a person he really admires, including the genius sniper Puth who wants to pursue his beautiful sister, and he unceremoniously scolds back, "Lao Tzu is a brother when you are a brother, but you want to sleep with my sister." A month passed, and Anthony, who stood in front of the 4 major instructors, began to announce the rules of the competition. "The time for the assessment is up. Next, the special opportunity to send your team to the primeval snow forest. This assessment is to simulate the confrontation of a large battlefield. You have to face the encirclement and suppression of Commander Rove. The best way is to behead. The enemy will have tanks, planes. I believe you will achieve good results. If you are all wiped out, sorry, this time the world's strongest instructor. There is no result, there will be no playoffs, the next time. The world's strongest instructor, you have lost your qualifications." Everyone knows it's unfair, but in Anthony's words, they don't have a chance to refute it at all, and the next moment, they let out a low roar. "Let's go!" Long Xiaoyun and other instructors who led the team, naturally they could not follow the boarding, they could only watch the players from their own country, and silently prayed in their hearts that if anyone could win the honor of the strongest instructor this time, there was no doubt that it would definitely shock the world. This is not only a duel between the king of soldiers, but also a decisive battle for instructors. Whether they can play the team's combat depends on their next means. Although Long Xiaoyan believed in Chunhounen, but looking back for a month, his team members did not have any other training except saluting, team, and basking in the sun. That is to say, those alpha soldiers followed the little guy, completely in vain, did not learn any skills, compared to the 2 captains of the beautiful country in France, practicing physical fitness every day, as well as tactical cooperation. "Let's go to the restaurant and wait. Beautiful Oriental lady, do you have a boyfriend?" Mark, a France who pays attention to elegance, invited Long Xiaoyun. Long Xiaoyun didn't look at each other, and said seriously, "It has nothing to do with you." Looking at Long Xiaoyun's disappearing back, the rejected Mark laughed out loud and said to Wilson who led the team next to him, "It's really ridiculous. I thought that the Oriental people had some means, and they ended up basking in the sun for a month. This is what a child does, and the whole world is paying attention to this event, which is too indecent." Wilson gave Mark a strange look. "When that kid was there, you never dared to invite the female officer of the East, and when he left, you launched a pursuit, and this is your elegance?" "No, it has nothing to do with elegance. I'm afraid of being beaten. That kid is a dead man in Siberia after all. Don't underestimate Anthony's eyes." On the other side, just as Chun Haonan and the others were boarding, Commander Rove and his Eastern Army had already reached the edge of the snowfield. It's a huge army of tanks, so well equipped that it's exactly like a Hulk Cool Kid kindergarten kid if you look at the pairing of strengths. Rove's commander had a staff officer named Peter Locke, who was a well-known wise man in the military, with meticulously combed hair and a handsome face, and in fact, many unmarried and married women in the local area had a crush on him, and some of them maintained intimate relationships, and their husbands did not know about it, and the chief of staff had such a skill. "General, the only variable in this assessment is this kid. Don't look at him, 9 years old, his way of doing things makes it impossible to see his routines, there is no trace at all, you dare to believe it, he led our Alpha Special Forces, salute the team for a month, besides, there is no training." Commander Rove nodded and said, "Indeed, I can't see through it, the way the other 2 captains lead the team, you can also speculate that they are touching the foundation of Alpha, their tactical cooperation training, and they are obviously making preparations with both hands, but this kid, I can't guess what he means. What's the point of taking my soldiers and basking in the sun every day?" Friend of women Peter Rock squinted his eyes and said, "Let's not talk about his way of leading the team. Judging from his performance in Siberia, there is no doubt that he is the strongest dead soldier in these years, and Instructor Anthony has not exaggerated, including the KGB principal with kidney deficiency, who praised him, saying that his friends could not do without him, and now including Doyle in the team, they are all his fans." Compared with Petrov's paranoia,
Commander Rove felt that it was completely unnecessary.
General, this little guy is not just a Siberian dead soldier, I have investigated him. Don't look at him leading the soldiers, a team flirting with that beautiful female officer. In fact, this is Sun Tzu's art of war. It is not as simple as the surface. You listen to my careful analysis. The hard-working Commander Rove interrupted the staff officer's words and waved his hand. Okay, I know that he is not stupid, and I am not sitting still in command. This time, I am a mobile commander, and the position is uncertain. These so-called soldier kings want to behead me. It is not so easy. But there's nothing to do. The soldiers are fast. We use the horizontal method, first cut them, and then use the deep method to eat them one by one. Before that, what you, the chief of staff, have to do, is to take care of Puss. Don't let him be eliminated so quickly.
Petrov nodded helplessly, and all kinds of information about Chun Haonan flashed in his mind: the new domestic king of soldiers, the strongest wolf warrior medal, and the strongest hunter. Such people will be simple?
Ah, Commander Rove is a reckless man. He is not interested in women, he is not very interested in conspiracy theories. Of course, this phrase is not daring to be said by the friends of women. On the plane, Chen Haonan got up from his seat and swept over everyone. All of them, ready to jump. In the cabin, there was silence for a while. As long as this month passed, everyone was not very familiar with each other. Chen Haonan said 2 or 3 words every day, saluted, stood in line, and disbanded. And then this so-called instructor pulled the hot-bodied female officer to tell stories under a sun umbrella and massage and relax, which was outrageous. It's been a month, family, who knows what it's like. Our alpha is absolutely obedient to orders, but it's not that the little daughter-in-law doesn't have a temper. Therefore, everyone didn't move much. 10 people and 20 eyes stared at Chen Haonan, with a strange expression, as if looking at a kindergarten child who wanted to go home from school early. Chen Haonan also stared at them like this, and the scene was very embarrassing for a while. Doyle stood up and said, "Instructor, the other party has the ability to hostile air. If we jump down like this, will we be bombarded?" Seeing Chen Haonan looking at him calmly, Doyle hurriedly explained, "Instructor, don't you know, our country has the world's most advanced satellite system and the most sophisticated scanning machine." Chen Haonan hugged his 2 little arms, and his little nose snorted coldly. "I know that your satellite system, called GLONASS, is called the 4 major satellite systems together with PGS in the beautiful country, Galileo in northern Europe, and the Beidou terminal in our east. But what does this mean? Don't worry about anything else. I am an instructor. I let you skydive, just parachute immediately. Those who disobey the order, exit Alpha." This sentence angered all the soldiers except Doyle. No one could have imagined that he was so cold and hard, and Doyle's hot face was obviously attached to the child's cold buttocks, and no one appreciated it. "Fuck, this is the beginning to wipe us out, don't want us." Captain Baikal was so angry that his muscles were puffed up, but what was the use? He could only helplessly speak, "Obey the order, he is an instructor." Everyone scolded in a low voice, and stood up helplessly one by one, eager to rush over and bite Chen Haonan to death. What about the emotions of these people is not Chen Haonan's consideration at all. The corners of his delicate little mouth hooked up a smile, and his eyes were quietly cold. "Hee, the information is locked and infiltrated, right, then I will cut off the information connection first." On the other side, in the mobile command center, Commander Rove had already explained to the communications staff officer, and listed Chen Haonan as a key target, and once his people jumped the grade, they would immediately launch a strike. "There's no way, Petrov, this guy, has been chanting dozens of times, he must be the first to kill the Oriental, he is the biggest threat." Report, the location of that kid's command center in the east has been locked, is it attacking? Hearing this, Commander Rove was not surprised and immediately gave an order. "Capture the other party's command information center, let this kid become a single commander. I see how he escapes next. Under the blockade of information, he will definitely become the first dead soldier to be eliminated." Yes. After receiving the commander's notice, the information personnel involved in the exercise immediately launched a fierce attack on Chen Haonan's command and information center and seized the command of the other side. Commander Rove looked at the busy information personnel, and kept nodding. The ability of his combat troops in terms of information infiltration, one is first class. At most 5 minutes, Chen Haonan will lose his information command ability, and become blind in the jungle when the time comes, and then destroy his subordinates one by one. Such superficial efforts must be done sufficiently. It is impossible to let the alpha who followed Chen Haonan defect at the beginning. This will become the world's largest digestion. It is completely a driver actor, self-directed and self-acting.
How much longer? Exquisite, 4 minutes at most. Well done, I'll give you a bonus. Thank you, General. DD.
Strange sounds continued to sound, accompanied by snowflakes flickering, and the information terminal carried by all the team members, the screen of a watch, began to blacken, confused, and finally lost the current and forcibly shut down. Yes, it infiltrated so quickly and hacked my command terminal, huh? Suddenly, a childish laugh sounded in everyone's ears without warning, and Doyle and the others were shocked to look at the little guy without a little pressure, and they didn't know what he was laughing at. Doyle couldn't bear it. Captain, we have lost the ability to contact each other, and we can no longer play the role of infiltration. How can we fight next? Standing at the door of the cabin, Chen Haonan, who was about to jump off the plane, left these alphas with a small head. You have also seen that our command center has been captured. Go down to the ground. You must be careful, don't give me the face of this instructor. Good luck to you. After speaking, Chen Haonan let his little body turn into a free fall in front of everyone and fly freely. After a long time, a serious roar sounded in the cabin. It's the instructor. This is Doyle's voice. And so it went. Aikal was startled by Doyle's voice, and finally reacted to him, his expression extremely complicated. From the beginning to the end, did he never trust? Jump the plane, give the best performance, people all over the world are staring at us. On the battlefield, there is never a director, everyone is the protagonist, and they are also their own director. Yes, Captain. The tall alpha soldiers jumped down one after another, drawing wonderful figures in the air. When they landed, they were strangely not attacked in mid-air. Too lucky, Captain, we weren't intercepted. Aikal is not a fool either, he has already figured out something, said with a complicated expression. From the very beginning, he knew that the command center would be captured, calculated the incident, and let us jump out immediately, because the headquarters can only choose one of the two and choose to attack our command center. It is impossible to turn on the hostile anti-air missile system at the same time. No matter what, he protected us. This sentence made the proud alpha soldiers fall into a short silence. Report, General. Tell me. Commander Rove urged. Yes, we have successfully captured the command information center of that kid in the east. He has lost his command and cannot contact anyone, but... What are you doing, mother-in-law? After saying it in one breath, grinding and chirping, Lao Tzu will shoot you. We conquered the information center, the other party just parachuted it this time, and has now landed safely and entered the forest. General, they jumped in advance, and we lost the opportunity to intercept in mid-air. He finished speaking in one breath, looking at his commander worriedly. Commander Rove was taken aback, jumping so quickly? You know, after arriving at the designated place, at least 10 minutes later, it is not easy to capture the opponent's command terminal, lock the position, as long as the missile system is turned on, that is, a cannon thing, the result is. So fast, so vigilant. Did they all jump? This sentence is very reasonable. After all, according to the information obtained by Commander Rove, Chen Haonan is completely a shopkeeper and has no comradely feelings at all. Yes. The correspondent almost rushed to answer. After a moment of silence, Commander Rove snorted coldly. It seems that Petrov is right, this is a very cunning child, who can actually make everyone jump in a moment after capturing the terminal. Petrov, do you think those soldiers will follow his orders? This little guy has been playing all the time? Petrov smiled. General, to convince others, not only to order, but also to provoke generals, he must have a way. You don't want to be deceived by this child. Let the beautiful female instructor in the east put down her body and serve him. It's not easy. I have met so many women, none of them are so obedient. Maybe it's just a coincidence, and he ran into it. Commander Rove exhaled. I have to say that after losing the advantage of information infiltration in the vast snowfield area, it will be a little trouble to find Chen Haonan's location, but it is also a big trouble. That little guy is new to the city and is not familiar with the terrain and landforms. General, that little guy has been looking at the map for a month, studying our geographical environment, terrain and landforms. Once he enters the snowfield, with the skills he has learned in Siberia, it is completely like a tiger to release the South Mountain, and the dragon to swim in the deep water. This sentence was like a flash of light, which suddenly slammed into Commander Rove's heart, making his Gundam body can't help but shake slightly, and a thought rises in his heart. I see, everything is a trick. His expression became very serious, and he immediately gave the order. Pass my order, immediately start the mobile combat plan. The first task, first annihilate the tribe of this child in the east, and then launch an encirclement and suppression against him. This is a prepared opponent, I am too interested in him. If he can escape my tracking, I can call him Dad. My general, Instructor Anthony may not agree. By the way, General, you can issue another order. Once you lock the position of the other captain, do not attack their command terminal, intercept it with missiles first. It's a good idea. Besides, Anthony will agree, he has never rejected me, we are good brothers. The order was passed down like a tide, and the operation, codenamed Annihilation of the Oriental Children, officially kicked off. This is not just a battle for individuals, but for nations. The 5 major military regions of Yenghua, the military headquarters, and even Zhongnanhai are all paying attention to this fierce event. In the vast snowfield, after Baikal and the others walked through for 10 minutes, they were stunned to find that they did not know where Chinhanan was at all and no trace was left. That is, they were really completely abandoned. Fuck, he really left us alone and left us to fend for ourselves, which is what he did in the beginning. Captain, our information has been cut off, we can't be separated, even if we find him, it's useless. Why is it useless? This assessment is originally a team battle, a test of the instructor's ability. I don't want to be said by people around the world that our alpha has no discipline, does not obey orders, and is completely self-directed and self-acting. Baikal said angrily, it doesn't matter, if he looks down on us, our team will show him the results, and others will underestimate our 3 teams. Well said. Doyle interjected, I have a different opinion. It was the instructor who asked us to jump out immediately, so that we avoided the missile interception and landed successfully. I feel that he is not avoiding us, maybe he is secretly protecting. Shut up, Doyle, believe it or not, I'll slap your boss. If this instructor is a woman, you will completely fall and become a licking dog. I see your face, I am ashamed to be your brother. Obviously he doesn't want to be right away, maybe he inadvertently helped us on the jump. But he doesn't deserve to admire him. Children are children, this is the strongest instructor competition in the world. But he gave up the team's way of fighting. At the beginning, Baikal was still grateful to Chunhao's boyfriend, but as time went by, no one could find him, and the gratitude disappeared and turned into resentment, like a long-distance couple. Doyle said, Captain, believe it or not, there are some people who don't even have a chance to land. He deserves to be followed by us. At the beginning, we didn't trust him ourselves, so we wanted to pursue my sister's purse and win this event. Baikal looked at Doyle indifferently. Puss is your brother, isn't it? You didn't challenge this instructor for him. Why did it suddenly change? Are you jealous of Puss's excellence? Captain, you're not that kind of person, you know. I just think that in my current position, we must follow this captain. As long as we don't show sincerity, he won't have the sincerity to take us. After all, no one wants to carry a burden. Bastard, who's a burden? Doyle, you gave up the honor of the alpha. Baikal was completely furious. He stepped forward, grabbed Doyle by the collar, tried to lift him up, and spat at him. As a captain, no captain is allowed to derail physically but spiritually. Just as he grabbed Doyle's shirt, suddenly, there was a rumbling sound in the sky in the northeast corner, and a huge firework burst into the air, dazzling. There are teams that are locked in position and intercepted in mid-air, and they don't have time to jump out. Doyle's words, brilliant sparks in the air, made Baikal calm down all of a sudden, and lost the strength to catch Doyle. His expression was distorted, as if he had been slapped in the face. There was really someone who didn't have time to jump out of the plane, and he was eliminated at the beginning. He let go of Doyle and took a deep breath. Then you say, where is our instructor? Captain, he's still in the air. What? This time, not only Baikal, but all the Alpha soldiers screamed in surprise. Baikal stared at Doyle and asked in surprise, he is still on the plane? How could it be? He was the first to jump. Captain, when he jumped down, he grabbed the rope ladder, and when he fell, the speed was too fast to see where he was, but it can be confirmed that he didn't come down. Maybe he had already controlled the plane and was still flying in the air, and the headquarters already felt that he had jumped down and did not launch a missile attack. When he said these words, Doyle couldn't help but show a puzzled and admiring expression. Baikal fell silent all of a sudden, and Shenhaunen's various operations flashed through his mind, automatically asking them to send an information command center to provoke them to jump off the plane immediately, and the headquarters must have discovered that they had jumped down through satellite monitoring, but he did not expect that he was still on the plane, so the initiative is still in his hands. He can land in any position, and even take advantage of the advantage of high altitude to conduct reconnaissance, and he is not afraid of missile interception.
Because of the missile, it can't think of it itself. The more I thought about it, the more I felt that this child was really terrible. It used to be a military quality, and now it is actually crushing them, although it is only a little uncomfortable, but Baikal has a cold sweat on his back. On the plane, Chen Haonan appeared in the cockpit and said indifferently to the pilot, "You get out of the way, I'll pilot." The pilot was so frightened by the sudden voice that he almost jumped out of the plane. "My God, didn't you jump? Why are you still behind me?" "I repeat, you get out of the way, I'll fly the plane, otherwise, I'll throw you out." "You're going to fly my plane? Are you a pilot, kid? No, you can't do that." "Oops." The pilot, who was thrown into the back seat, quickly stood up, held back the horror in his heart and rushed to the cockpit, only to see that the child was already sitting in his place, put on the flight helmet, and keep up with the opening button, so proficient that it seemed that these controls were all parts of his body, and he could play as he liked. You're an 8 or 9-year-old kid who can fly a plane, my God. Don't talk so much nonsense and affect the pilot's mood, sit in the back, or find a parachute to jump in yourself. After the flying hunting skill was turned on, Chen Haonan's whole person was integrated with the helicopter, followed by the integration with space. He was the most ace pilot. At this time, if there was a soaked master Kong, he could open it with one hand, eat and drink, and drive the plane with one hand. The plane was controlled by his two little hands, and under the amazement of the pilot, it dived at great speed. "I'm going to make a difficult move, sit down, have you bought insurance?" While speaking, Chen Haonan glanced behind him. After all, this is a living human life, and he can't completely ignore it, and after the pilot fusses and fixes himself in the seat, he pushes the control, a big barrel rolls, and the plane is under his control. A series of flips, accompanied by the man's screams, directly slammed into the jungle and fell. "Ah, steady, steady. The president of the Iran just had an accident, and I don't want to be in the news." The pilot's whole body trembled, his muscles tensed, and he climbed directly to the peak of his life with a scream. When his screaming ended, his body seemed to be fishing, but he found that the helicopter he was riding in was already flying steadily at an altitude of 2 or 3 meters above the jungle. Ultra-low altitude flight, is it still dangerous? Also, he has just done several difficult jobs, cobra maneuvering, big barrel rolling, traveling, plus now ultra-low altitude flight. As long as he can hold on, this is the absolute trump card of aces. It's very dangerous. Why take such a risk? We will destroy people at all times, and then make headlines around the world. You don't have to fight so hard, be so serious, it's just acting, a game and a dream. Don't take too many risks, waste every minute of your life. Chen Haonan glanced back at him and said indifferently, "For me, the exercise is war, and besides, this is not an adventure. Such a pilot action is as steady as an old dog for me. You don't take the initiative to fall down. By the way, have you bought insurance?" "Buy. Bought it. My God, why should I answer your question?" The pilot saw that Chen Haonan actually turned his head to talk to him while keeping telling the flight, and exclaimed in fright, "You look ahead. What do you look at me? How can you turn around and fly at a low altitude like this? There is a century-old tree in front, and it is about to collide." Suddenly, the helicopter made an S-turn, brushed past the huge trees, and then continued to press down, burrowing under the canopy of branches and leaves, and began to make its way through the trees. I look back at you, you can fly the same, it's not a big problem, since you have insurance, then I will speed up, our flight is monitored, we must get rid of the tracking of the headquarters, so that they cannot be traced. As he spoke, Chen Haonan's hands and feet were not slow, controlling the helicopter in the gap of the forest, constantly passing through the huge spiral wind, constantly rolling up the snow on the ground, and the scattered residual leaves. The scene was gorgeous and thrilling, and from time to time the man's panting before the climax came. This flight was definitely an unforgettable experience for this pilot, and after the event, he even wrote a memoir, The World's Strongest Instructor from the East, Who Took Him to Dance with Death. I found out that I was in love with him, but unfortunately he was not a girl, and I couldn't confess to him. Headquarters, control room. Helicopter number 1 disappeared. Helicopter number 1 could not track the surveillance. The correspondent quickly informed Commander Rove, who was at the mobile command, of the news by telephone. This cold and famous big man in the East, with the same background as Emperor Pu, pays attention to efficiency, ruthlessness, and will be retribution, but after hearing the news, he thought calmly for a long time, and finally sighed, "Chief of Staff, you have a point, that kid in the East is really cunning, he controls the plane and the pilot, completely out of our control, at most annihilates his subordinates.
But he can't find his place, he is already in the shadows, and the other three. Captains, we already know the approximate location. In comparison, those people are still garbage, waste, one by one, they are famous, but they are locked so quickly, only this child. Peter Locke's handsome face smiled. General, you also criticized our Captain Puss. By the way, what did you decide to do to him, so that people around the world think that we were not cheating, and Puth can get the strongest instructor in the world? At the beginning, we treated everyone equally. If Puss didn't have that ability, let him be destroyed. Moscow doesn't believe in tears, and it doesn't need the honor that comes from such cheating, only people from the outside world, who maliciously guess about us. General, your decision is really great and wise. Nonsense, go lay out the bait, lure them over and disappear. I'll see that fish take the bait first. Yes, General. An invisible net began to spread out, and the wind and waves became bigger and bigger. In the forest, Baikal, who was dumbfounded by Doyle, led the team members and was advancing rapidly, arguing at this time, or guessing where Chinhaonan was. It was useless. To prove himself, he found the command headquarters and carried out the decapitation operation. The stronger they behave, the more they get the permission of the general, and they will not let them wear small shoes after completing the decapitation. This is the alpha, this is the woolly bear country, and the more they fight, the stronger they become. Wait. Baikal rolled neatly in the forest, rolled out 3 meters away, hid in a large tree, and observed for a moment before waving his hand to let everyone follow. When everyone came behind him silently, Baikal excitedly pointed to the forest more than 30 meters away in front of him and said, "We are lucky, there is a secret camp here. It may be the command center. After all, we landed in advance, and the enemy did not expect us to appear in this position." He couldn't help the excitement in his voice. Just now, he observed for a while, and found that this location was still quite hidden, and there were not many inspectors. With their hands, they could completely touch it, maybe. He knew the general's fighting style. He liked to take risks, and sometimes when the militants angered him, he would fly the fighter plane to fight and destroy the militants. And in acting, he doesn't like too tight defenses, and often arranges the command center unexpectedly, and there are not many defenders in positions you don't expect at all, and even, you will think that it is really a resident of the jungle. This is really our general's style. Even if he is not here, at least one general, if the beheading is successful, it will be enough to prove our worth. You can try. It's an opportunity. In Doyle's frown, Baikal immediately ordered, divide into 2 groups, infiltrate this secret command center, and let that child of the East know our value, how stupid it is for him to give up on us. Captain, wait a minute. Doyle stopped Baikal with a loud voice, and he frowned on his dark brow, always feeling that something was wrong here. This was the instinctive reaction of the warrior. Doyle, what do you have to do at this time? Do you still have to find that elementary school instructor first? No, I don't think the command center should be here. It could be a trap. This is the general's style, and, don't always question my judgment. I'm the captain. Don't you want to obey orders? I definitely obey the order, but I don't want to die. Captain, your judgment is not calm enough. I suggest that you observe and observe again. Don't rush in. This event is a global event after all. It won't be so simple. Baikal was furious, pointed at Doyle's nose and scolded, "In my opinion, you have been brainwashed by that child, and you dream of worshipping him as a teacher. So whatever I say, you will oppose anything. Doyle, regarding your words and deeds, after the event, I will definitely write a written report and submit it. You have disappointed me too much." Okay, you still doubt my decision. You don't have to come along, you traitor. You don't deserve any credit. Brothers, let's go. He pushed Doyle away and told him to stand still and not follow. Go. Baikal led the others and infiltrated the hidden command post, and in the process, they were bubbling with excitement, feeling that the honor belonged to them, and that the opportunity to slap the child in the face had come. Doyle, who was unable to follow him, stood in place for a moment, sighed, and retreated step by step. He didn't leave, but found a hidden high ground and hid himself, and his sixth sense told him that things were not so simple, and Baikal they didn't admire Chenhaonan in their hearts, plus they were in a hurry to show themselves, and they were often the easiest to make mistakes. They are in such a hurry. After approaching the tent for more than 10 meters, Baikal managed to lead his men, killed 4 soldiers standing guard, and continued to advance, getting closer and closer, and this became an undefended zone. Brothers, go on, fight quickly. Baikal gestured and led the men quickly into the quiet camp. Before they could get close to the tent, suddenly the sound of footsteps, eating, and drinking sounded, and a large number of soldiers quickly rushed out from all directions, surrounding all 9 of them. Little Master, there is more to this chapter. Please click on the next page to continue reading. The back is more exciting.
Damn, this is a camp to lure the enemy.
Baikal woke up like a dream, and his intelligent intelligence occupied the high ground of his mind again, but it was useless. A commander appeared in front of him, recognized his identity, and said in a very sarcastic tone, "It turned out to be Captain Baikal. Your whirlwind detachment is worthy of being famous for being fast, and the death is also fast, huh? It is really the subordinate of that kid in the east. The whole army is annihilated, and they are all arrested and sent to the general." Baikal's face fused, full of guilt, looked at his brother, who could only be disarmed together and then tied up. A deputy next to him couldn't help but complain, "Captain, you should listen to Doyle's words, his judgment is accurate." Baikal was silent and speechless. And this sentence resonated with everyone. Yes, this is obviously a trap, the vice team can't see it, we are too impulsive, such an important event, why is the command center here, hey? It's really stupid, the Whirlwind Squad has become a disgrace, it is better to be intercepted by a missile in mid-air, this is still force majeure, and now it has fallen into the trap of the enemy and become a laughingstock. The aggrieved discussion of the team made the arrogant Baikal, like a defeated rooster, lower his head, embarrassed to look at these comrades in arms. In addition to clenching his fists, his teeth were about to be crushed. He couldn't pretend to be forced in front of that child, and it became a joke. He couldn't wait to find a crack in the ground and get in. Not long after, they were escorted into a car and drove more than 10 kilometers or so to a base. Commander Rove and the Chief of Staff were in the base, looking at Baikal and the others who were sent in. The two looked at each other, and then laughed.
"Peter, are you overestimating the strength of that kid in the east? You see, the subordinates he led are too stupid, they actually got into the first fake mobile base, and they didn't waste a bullet at all. What kind of strongest instructor is this, huh? It's really stupid, Mom, to open the door stupidly, stupid to get home, huh?"
Hearing this, Baikal, who was originally embarrassed and ashamed, was even more ashamed and dripping blood on his face, and he was really embarrassed. He is the captain of the Whirlwind team, so he naturally has to take all the responsibility, and now the situation is that he is embarrassed to explain, he is too stupid, and has nothing to do with that kid in the east, and what makes him even more helpless is that he and his teammates look at him, and they become completely distrustful, they question themselves, and they are sent to death collectively at the beginning, especially when the general says, "This is the first fake mobile base." "General, I didn't expect them to be so hasty this time, it seems that it was that kid who let them explore the way in front, without any plan in advance, and no contingency measures, it was completely a blind man touching the elephant and directly touching the mine." Chief of Staff Peter smiled, he began to wonder if he was overestimating the child in the east, after all, he was a child with uneven hair, and the east was too exaggerated? Especially on the Shangjiang side, to what extent is it exaggerated? He has wings on his body. In the early newspapers and periodicals, Chen Haonan is still a little Superman with a big eagle on his face, more fierce than Sun Wuhan, and exaggerated, so it's outrageous. Baikal couldn't help but say, "Report, our whirlwind detachment is not completely annihilated, and Doyle is still alive." Oh. Petrov swept over, and sure enough, there was one man missing from the group. "Pass the order down and catch Doyle as soon as possible." Commander Rove didn't pay attention to Doyle's slip through the net, he boarded the armored vehicle used for command, mixed in the tank convoy, and drove into the jungle. Doyle in the forest, after watching Baikal and the others surrounded, immediately retreated and found a place to lurk, and it didn't take long for him to see a huge armed force appear. Hundreds of elite fashions, tanks and drones are completely bastions of war, and needless to say, the commander is definitely hiding in a mobile convoy, and you don't even know where his location is. Doyle hid in the woods, and it didn't take long for the tank to rumble towards his position, which made him suddenly despair. Such a flat push over the war fortress, plus the drone overhead, he would definitely be discovered. In this global event, although only the ability of the leading instructors is assessed, if their detachment is the first to be wiped out, it will be a great shame, which is why Baikal feels embarrassed, guilty, and humiliated. "I can't be caught like this, but what to do? Once I leave, I will be discovered. I am the last hope of the Whirlwind detachment." Doyle can imagine that after the event, they collectively reviewed in front of the whole army was hesitating and helpless, when suddenly a voice sounded beside him. "Doyle, come with me." The voice is immature, as if it were a child. Doyle turned his head suddenly, and suddenly saw a young and handsome little face.
he was actually an instructor, a child from the East, and he didn't know when he was standing behind him. Instructor. Doyle felt a surge of emotion in his body, and hope burned in his heart. Why are you here? The tank group is coming. I'll cover you, you retreat. This child is naturally Chenhaonan. He found a group of tanks in the air, as well as a group of unmanned aircraft, plus the dense forest. He could not fly, he could only land, and at the same time used camouflage to inspect the enemy, but he didn't expect that Doyle was hiding in the forest. Doyle, give me your body. At the same time, there can be no resistance in your heart. Let me control your body, then, no matter what happens, you don't make any sound, I will take you to escape. Doyle was taken aback and asked, my body is handed over to you? What are you doing? Can we still escape? You don't have a grudge against me in your heart, so that's fine, Doyle, please trust your instructor. The child standing in front of Doyle, his expression is cold, his temperament is cool, although he is young, but he is as rich as jade, beautiful and graceful, like a fairy child in a painting. He stretched out his hand, grabbed Doyle's thick hand, and showed him a warm smile. I don't know why, when he came into contact with this smile, Doyle's heart actually pounded, and he felt like he was being electrified. For a long time, he has been giving Doyle and all the alpha children an expression that is cold, not much to say, just 2 or 3 sentences, salute, line up, and disband. Now, he's smiling at me, he's smiling at me. He is the only inheritor of Tang Long's big axe leg method, the only one in this world. Because of Tang Long's relationship, Doyle, who is deeply fond of martial arts, has a special emotion for Chenhaonan, a child, who appreciates and admires him. There is also a kind of idol love house and Wu touched. Now, the kid smiled at him. Doyle was enthusiastic and immediately nodded, I am willing to. Good. Get down. Doyle didn't hesitate to make a split. Take off your clothes, lie naked in the snow, and bury your clothes, take it off. Naked. What is he going to do? He's just a kid, and besides, I'm not a woman. No. Doyle had a not-so-good feeling. Take it off, it's too late. Chenhaonan roared. I'll take it off. General Doyle took off his clothes one by one, and in the process, he was surprised to find that Chenhaonan was also taking off his clothes, and in front of him, he took them off one by one. Tops, pants. Then the mallet is revealed. It's a child, it seems. It's not a child at all, much older than me. After Doyle flashed this thought, he saw Chenhaonan grab his hands and press him down on the snow, making him scream directly, but the next moment, his mouth was covered. Look at how your body reacts. The immature and urging voice did not calm down Doyle, on the contrary, he couldn't help but shake his head vigorously. I don't react to men, or boys, what I like is mother. Pay attention to hiding, what are you doing with your eyes closed? I'm not interested in you, my girlfriends can be in line S, you Zhang Fei. Chenhaonan made a big tease and woke up Doyle, who closed his eyes and obeyed the order. Doyle almost wanted to cry, but in the line of sight in his eyes, he saw his palms turn snow-white, followed by his arms, and spread all over his body. He became snow-white. This is... He hurriedly looked up at the instructor who was pulling him, but saw that the other party said happily. It's not bad, with the improvement of physical attributes, I can affect other people's physical reactions, but we must have admiration for me, there is no mustard, we can be integrated, regardless of you and me. This is indeed a new skill in nature camouflage, playing out. Once when he met with Enran's female assistant frankly, Chenhaonan found that when he was holding Enran, after opening the natural camouflage, he actually let Enran also enter a state of disguise, but he didn't expect that men could too. Instructor, is this what you are capable of? How did you do it?